could do this once a week. You click on top of average. For now, don't look at anything else. Just click clone and click send. As soon as you do that, it's best to do this on a Wednesday. You will have as many coins as possible by the end of the week, if this goes through. There you go. So tomorrow at 8:25 p.m., the Carolina Panthers will play the Philadelphia Eagles in a football game. What's interesting about sports is that the results are not known at this time. However, after the game, everyone knows the results, and they can be independently verified. Not just the score of the game, but the statistics as well. So number of tackles, number of catches, number of touchdowns. Then all these statistics can be independently verified in the future, but right now it's a random variable. About 30 years ago, they came up with this thing called fantasy points. It's a normalization of statistics across positions, and it ranges from like 0 to 40. So actually, what you just did before, you just made a projection on every single player in the NFL. And what you did was you actually copied the average projections in the system. So this is like the baseline that you're going to do. So fantasy sports is a $50 billion market with around 60 million players in the United States. And so here's how minting goes. Since we're not an ERC20 coin, we have our own blockchain. So the coin gets minted based on the formula number 2, which is every fantasy point scored in the NFL mints 100 fantasy bits. And number 3 is, third rule is that something called a projection transaction, which takes the player, the number, and your signature, and all the full nodes, which are the desktop apps. So this is a full node. So I see already Cruise. Some people are right ahead of me. So all these guys are new. So the desktop app are the full nodes, and they will mint the coins and distribute based on distribution algorithm. So all the coins go to the users, and they go to, based on the algorithm of whoever is the most accurate at making projections. So in essence, our fantasy bits are a token of fantasy football skill. And this is just the beginning part. This is the minting and the mining. What we do is we use these tokens that you just mined with your skill. We do what's called a proof of skill consensus, which is much more technical. And then there's also utility. So now that we have the coins, there's a utility where there's an actual market where these coins are needed to speculate and hedge fantasy football risk for high-stakes players. And we're thinking about maybe doing a private sale, but since our coin's live, and it's been live for a couple of years, we can't just independently create coins. But we're looking to launch in the secondary market, and we're looking for certain ways to do that. And anyone have any questions I can answer now? All right, well, by the time the game's over tomorrow night, whoever did this will have fantasy bits in their wallet. You do this every Wednesday from now till Christmas, and you will be one of the whales of our system, and you can start making decisions on what we do next. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Snyder, and this is Chris Casano, and we are the core team at SDKD. We're building developer tools for blockchain applications and for the blockchain ecosystem. First, just to set a little bit of context, the world of, if we compare blockchain development to web development, of course, is significantly further ahead. There's an enormous amount of complexity that has been abstracted away for people who are developing web applications. In fact, if you're developing a web app, you don't even have to think about scalability anymore. You can pass that off to somebody else. In our world of blockchain, all of that amazing abstraction does not exist. And so that is our goal, is to make it easier to build these applications. And we do that by, again, abstracting away complexity. So what our product is specifically, it's a snippet of code that you drop into your mobile application, and once you've done that, you are able to switch on modules. So modules are just reusable components, parts, snippets of code, sometimes containing UI elements as well that are customizable. And the idea is that you can turn on a wallet, turn on account recovery, turn on a leaderboard. Let's say that you want to have, you make an application and you have an ERC20 application token, and you want users in your application to be able to comment and upvote with your app token, rather than every single application developer building that from scratch every time. They can come to a system like ours, grab the component, and move a lot faster, and essentially hide a lot of the infrastructure. So what we're going to do here is show a little bit of a demo. And we were going to do this demo live, but the Wi-Fi is a little shaky, so we'll see it here. If you want to come see it live on your own phone, we've got a table at the back of the hall. So what we've got here is an application, a mobile app. This is an ERC20 wallet, super simple. It's live on the testnet. As far as we know, this is the first mobile wallet SDK. It deploys automatically on the device, all of that good stuff. And so what we want to do is add in one of these modules. And so in this example, we'll go ahead and grab our leaderboard module from our docs. And what Chris is doing is he's copying the module from the developer portal, and is going to paste it into the source code. And upon pasting and saving, we now have a leaderboard in our application. And so while this seems simple, there's actually some amazing stuff going on here. This is a UI element that is grabbing from application data, reading data off the blockchain, and in this case, using the Etherscan's API, and all of that complexity is hidden away, so a developer, again, can just move really fast as we all together build this application ecosystem for people to use all these wonderful tokens that we're creating. Yeah. Excellent. So where we are now, just an update. We've got this mobile wallet SDK. If you're building an application, especially a mobile app that uses an ERC20 token, definitely come talk to us. We've got some basic modules done, like payment and account recovery, and we've got some pretty clever ideas about how we're storing the user's private key on the device, recognizing that for a consumer-grade application, the idea of a 12-word passphrase is a bit prohibitive. So there's some interesting things that we're working on there. And then our focus is on building more modules, integrating with really interesting projects, and continuing to build out the ecosystem. So with that, that's a little bit about us. We're here ultimately to meet people who are interested in what we're building, and we may be interested in what they're building. So please reach out if you think you fall into any of these buckets or just want to talk. And I'm David Snyder, and that's Chris Casano. And thank you so much for your time. And thanks, Kurt, from BlockCon. This has been really amazing. So thank you so much.
What's happening, BlockCon? How are we feeling today? So I'm Danny Johnson. I'm a co-founder of PinkCoin, the world's first blockchain-based charitable donation platform. How many of you, by a show of hands, have heard of PinkCoin before? We got a couple of you. Okay. Well, this is exactly why we're here. So I'm going to introduce the man best suited to talk about PinkCoin, the developer of the project, our Chief Technology Officer, Jeremy Redinger, who's going to get you filled in on PinkCoin.
I don't have to tell you why the world needs our help. Many recent tragic events have already done that for us. But I look at you and I see the faces of change. Our future will be shaped by the ideas we value and by the technologies we choose to invest in. Cryptocurrency and blockchain technology has created fantastic opportunities and possibilities for each of us. Now it's time for us to come together to work to create a better future for everyone. PinkCoin is designed to give everyone an opportunity to make a difference in the way that works best for them. Our innovative platform allows anyone to contribute. With our system, you can donate directly to one of our partner charities or indirectly through our Donate for Life platform that will take your donation and generate an income for that charity indefinitely. You don't even have to donate from your own holdings. You can use our side staking technology that we developed to donate your proof of stake rewards to those charities on your behalf automatically. PinkCoin is not only the most technologically advanced charity that we have, it's also the most human. We worked with Jeff Neiman from Cardiac Kids and raised thousands of dollars for kids that are suffering from heart disease. We're working with Lucas Seppinger, who's helping us develop an education platform so people can learn and understand blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And together with Bittrex, we were able to raise over $20,000 for the hurricane relief effort recently. Okay. I see a future where charity is not an afterthought or a reaction, but a natural byproduct of our thriving digital economy, where we can focus on relief and recovery and prevention and not on where the money is going to come from, because platforms like Donate for Life have already ensured that the money is there when we need it. PinkCoin is a beacon of light that brings together the best people in crypto and allows us to work together to create a better future. Join us, and together we will save the world. Thank you.
Hello. Came here all the way from Ukraine, and today I will present a Token D, which is the framework for enterprise tokenization platforms. So we all hear about tokenization, everybody is speaking that, but what is it in reality? So tokenization is the way of transforming management of asset, and as a result receiving a digital token that allows to handle this asset in a more efficient way. So for example, US dollar used to be a token for gold at some point. And right now, for example, Tether, the digital currency, is a token for US dollar. So people were tokenizing things all their lives during the existence. Why tokenization is needed? The main function of tokenization is to reduce trade frictions. So let's say you have a physical asset and you always have a problem with it. So it can be stolen, it's hard to transport, you pay fees. When the transition is done and asset becomes digital, so token becomes digital, it's easy to trade. It's easy to exchange, easy to pay, and associate maybe some new functions with this token. What makes trade difficult? First of all, it's like a very complicated KYC process. Right now, it's paper-based. People are struggling, and I'm pretty sure that all you know how hard it is to trade stocks, for example, for an ordinary person. Because you need to sign a lot of papers, you need to go there, you need to understand all this chain of intermediaries, etc. It's always inconvenient, it's associated with high fees, and speed is low. So tokenization is the way to change the infrastructure of trade, storage, and payments. So the thing is that everything will be tokenized. That's true. All kinds of assets, regardless whether it's money, property, loyalty, reputation, land titles, etc. And I believe that we will not have a one platform where everything will be stored, because it just can't be done from technology point of view. But tokenization platforms will continue to popping up. So there will be many of them. In ultimate use case, every company will have its own tokenization system that will store and manage underlying assets. We in Distributed Lab, we've been working on infrastructure projects based on blockchain for more than 3 years. And now we see the trend is really coming. And what we do now, we created a framework for tokenization. We name it Token D, and basically the framework includes best practices, protocols, code base, wireframes, technical specifications, security guidelines, and quality standards. So that's basically a documentation plus code base, plus our expertise. And we are building turnkey solutions based on that. So this is the architecture of any tokenization system. Tokenization system usually includes registration of users, issuing of assets, transfers, trade, management of assets, and some other features. So we specify each of these components in documents and build modules that can be reused later to build similar systems. It doesn't matter what you tokenize, gold, silver, stock, money. Business logic will be different, but the basic principles will be the same. So just quick look. So that's the screenshots from documentation that we write. It's already more than 400 pages of documentation about each of that modules. So we specify all our experience and what we plan to do, why it's needed. The example would be, if you want to build a skyscraper, you can build it once. But in order to make it really, the process predictable, you need blueprints. And if blueprints are freely available, if they are open source, someone can build these skyscrapers in any country, any city, and that's how technology is evolving. And open blueprints are very important for that. So we create these blueprints and we also build skyscrapers. So the one more feature is that tokenization really adds something to physical assets, something that they're not inherent in their features, like ability to vote, ability to fractionalize provenance and identity. So it really needed to transform the whole trade industry. And what we work on is basically WordPress for tokenization. Thank you. You can go to this website and see documents that are already in there. So it's still like filling in, but yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Blesnak. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Total. So crypto assets have exploded in value, interest, development, but administrating crypto assets has been a nightmare, and it's a nightmare for me. I felt that pain point as I developed my own portfolio and have traded them and managed them over time. So in response to this pain point, we developed a portfolio management solution. Instead of talking about it, I'm going to show you our product demo. We can start now. So our platform is based on Ethereum. User has Ethereum in their wallet, which they hold the private keys to. When they choose to create a new portfolio, Total will show the balance in their wallet, which may be in MetaMask, Toshi, their Ledger Nano. They'll input how large their portfolio is going to be. So in this case, we've decided our portfolio is going to be $640. We didn't give our portfolio a catchy name. Now we choose the underlying crypto assets. As I had mentioned, our public alpha coming in January with live trading will be based on ERC20 tokens. However, for a demo, we're showing all crypto assets that will be coming later in 2018. The user then decides on the allocation of the assets within their portfolio. Mark, our CTO, is doing a great job manipulating this for us and seems to really like EOS today. And then the user will confirm that all of the data input is correct. And when they go ahead and click continue, Total then goes out and does a kayak-like price comparison to decentralized exchanges, whether it's OX Project and overarching relayers such as Radar or the Ocean or others up and coming, or it's Kyber or it's Loopring. Our platform agnostic architecture will allow the user to get the best price, retain ownership of their assets, pull them directly back into their wallet, and then monitor performance and show asset allocations over time. The great thing about Total that I want to tell you right now is that by allowing the user to keep ownership and paying Total for this easy-to-use software per trade, $10 per trade, they can decide tomorrow that they no longer like Total and can take their assets and run off with them and do what they like, put them in their vault, go use a different platform. They don't owe us anything or have to stick with us. These are assets that are in your wallet, which you own the private keys to at all time. And that's our platform. So thank you for listening. Last slide here. We're doing a portfolio competition. If you go back to if you go to draftcoins.com, we're giving away $10,000 in prizes throughout November. First round starts October 31st. Use this interface that I just showed, select your portfolio, and you can win daily, weekly, and monthly prizes. So good luck. Yeah. How many assets did he choose? 5? 5 trades. Thank you.
I'm Skylar. I'm in 10th grade, and here's the fireside chat with Jason Calacanis.
Actually, let's fix his face. It's part of our To the Moon theme. I don't know, Jason, if you know that.
I'm going to get into that elbow, like armrest war. Everybody knows that technique. Man, you got to like...
You are already in the business class, Jason. I should be doing that.
I feel like you're really far away. Can you sit in A1,
Sure.
please? Move closer. Let me just put my seat back. Look at this crew. This reminds me of the early days of the internet. It's literally like the early days of the internet. It's like a group of misfits who are completely enthusiastic about something that has absolutely no basis in reality. It's fun. You're all so fucking crazy delusional. I love it. You're going to make this work. I feel like this whole thing is going to, you guys are going to figure it out.
Well, I think we can.
You can?
I think we can figure this out.
Well, thanks for having me, Kurt. This is pretty impressive.
Actually, I should thank you because you're 50% of the reason why we are all here.
Really?
Yeah.
Please
'cause-
explain.
So somewhere in March, when we met at Launch Festival.
Yep.
I just, was it the Angel Festival? Yeah. I walked over to you and I just said, hey, Jason, would you like to come over? We're doing a conference.
Yeah.
I didn't have a venue, didn't have any sponsors, nothing. And I said, would you like to come? And
Yeah.
you said yes.
Buy some books.
And buy some books, which we did. And I was like, okay, that was easy peasy.
Yeah.
Had you not said yes and gave me that encouragement to go forward, I would have still be spinning my wheels thinking, oh, you know what, before I talk to a speaker, before I invite him, I need to have these sponsors, I need to have this venue.
Yeah.
And all of this spinning, and we would still be sitting in my bathroom having this shadow conversation like, okay, what would I tell Jason? How can I convince him? But you just did it.
And you just learned your first lesson
Yes.
of being a Jedi Knight.
Well, I don't know about that.
Congratulations. You now understand. Like a Jedi,
Right.
they go and they do things. They're not passive, right? And being active in the world and doing things
Right.
separates you from all the non-Jedi. And now you're on your way. But just be careful because sometimes Jedis lose hands and arms and legs. So
Well, this is
just make sure you complete your training.
Well, this is a one-time event. I'm not doing another event.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a project.
He's lying. He's lying. He's just going to up the ticket price, and then you guys will all convince
I'm
him
a
to do
project manager, not a conference organizer.
it. All right. Well, thank you for buying all the books, and I'm going to sign them all at the back, and I hope people read it. But
Yeah.
you have questions for me. Go ahead.
Yes, and I do want to make a quick announcement. So people who have bought the paid VIP passes right after our panel, Fireside Chat, Jason is going to be on the shop floor. Go ahead to the registration desk, get your books, and he will sign them graciously.
I will sign all those books.
Make sure you tweet, take lots of photos, and there's a banner, and you guys might get confused. Why does it say 2013?
Yeah, you stole that banner for my conference,
Actually, you guys were going to throw it away.
and you took it.
And I told Jason DeMont, like,
Okay.
hey, why are we throwing this away? You know, and that was the first time I had attended and volunteered at you. I still have the T-shirt.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, whatever. So I took out the PVC pipes because I had a Camry. And I'm like, I can't fit this in my Camry. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to chuck the PVC pipes out, fold it, and put
Perfect.
it.
Smart
And it's been
move.
in my house. I thought I would like hang it somewhere.
Do you sleep in it? Is it like a
No,
comforter?
I mean,
Anyway. I made a big mistake, which is I used to put the year on the banner.
yes, yes.
See, the secret is to don't put the year, and then you can use it over and over again.
Actually, you may not realize it, but there are certain things from Launch Festival that have actually absorbed and incorporated.
Yeah, the VIP pass.
The VIP, obviously
Brandis.
Brandis, Scott up front,
Scott up front, good.
and the video wall.
And the video wall, yeah.
This is
This shit's expensive.
it's very expensive.
This is like 30 grand.
Double it,
Yeah. You know what the one at Launch Festival was?
maybe 100.
150.
150. Okay.
Yeah, it's too expensive. Never
Nice.
again. All right, ask me a question about cryptocurrencies. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, let's get right into it. So, How do you feel about cryptocurrency and the model that cryptocurrency ICOs are taking versus the traditional VC capital venture funding? How do you feel?
It's a good question. I have been studying what's happening in the crypto space for a long time, and I've had 21 & Co. and Tezos and Jason Goldberg and basically everybody who's involved in the crypto space, Brock Pierce, on my podcast over the last 4 years talking about cryptocurrency and ICOs. And there's obviously a lot of great fundamentals here. That's why people are so enthusiastic. But we've now hit a moment in time where I think it's getting truly dangerously a bubble. And as long as you're cognizant of the fact that you're in a bubble, you can protect yourself. And bubbles typically have some benefits for those people who don't get destroyed when they blow up. And so when I was just thinking about it last night, and I had this like crazy dinner last night with like a bunch of crypto people, and it's like a religion. I mean, these people, they're just so nuts about this. It's ridiculous. And I go home, and I had a drink or two, and I literally dreamt about cryptocurrency last night and ICOs. I'm not kidding. I'm having this crazy dream, and there's a tiger, and then they were talking with this tiger about ICOs, and it was nuts. Anyway, I'll put that aside. And I was thinking about it, and I woke up like in the middle of the night, and I jotted down some notes about this because I was like, wow, I've been looking at all these ICOs, and I invest in 30 companies for a living. I've only done one crypto investment, Abra, A-B-R-A, which won the Launch Festival a couple years ago.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, look at these ICOs. So I typed in ICO to Google, and I saw 4 or 5 ads for ICOs. And the ad said, get in now, 50% bonus, the #1 ICO, top-ranked ICO quality. And I was like, oh, my God. And then I was on Instagram stories last week, and I swiped through Instagram stories, and there was an ad for Science's IPO with a countdown clock and one of the world's greatest incubators. And I just thought to myself, if it's the world's greatest incubator, then you don't need to advertise, and you're oversubscribed. So obviously it's not the world's greatest incubator. Although Science has done some great things, advertising and hard sell advertising with countdown clocks is a huge mistake. And I'm friends with, or sort of friends, or maybe I was friends, I might not be friends anymore, with Peter and Mike. And I told them straight up, like, this is really a bad idea to be doing hardcore advertising like this. But just take this into just listen to this profile of the companies, because I was looking at them and I said, wow, these are people with no track record, raising large amounts of money, check, right? We all agree on these two facts, largely, to build some derivative and copycat ideas described in white papers and business plans, okay, check, and not all ICOs, but most of them. And they're raising money from consumers who find out about them in advertising and chat rooms, and they're pocketing 10 to 20% of what they raise as a commission, while 100% of the people at this conference who I talk to are in agreement that 98% of ICOs are total crap and going to zero, but they are still here. So this reminds me exactly of the dot-com era, which was we were sitting there going, we know there is something here, but this is all complete utter bullshit and a scam, and none of this is going to work. But what happened was very interesting. So I wrote some notes about that too, because we really thought that in Web 1.0 there was something there, but we had a hard time describing it.
Right.
And what it was a company named Amazon came out of that. And basically the only other things that came out of it, towards the tail end, Google, but no other companies really came out of that era. But if you look at just those two companies, they have $1 trillion in market cap and hundreds of billions in revenue. So I predict that a similar thing will happen here, which is somewhere in this room or this space and these ICOs, it's all utter nonsense, and you're going to lose everything except 1 or 2 companies, which will become fabulously game-changing companies. Right. And if you look at what happened when the bubble burst, how many people are over the age of 35? Who's over the age of 35? Who's under the age of 35? Raise your hand. Great, perfect. It's 50-50. The people under the age of 35 didn't really experience the bubble like we did. But what happened when that bubble grew is it popped, and it infected the world. like a crazy virus. And the virus was the internet. And we got Wi-Fi, Ethernet in every computer, which back then everybody remembers. You had to put an Ethernet card or buy an Ethernet dongle for your USB on your laptop. We had this crazy fiber that was invested in around the world that nobody ever used. And it took a decade to actually start using it. And we also had open source and mobile phones and the App Store and broadband and this global growth. And so the question is that what's going to happen here? Or will this be similar to other booms and busts we've had, like P2P, which was going to change everything? And there were an incredible number of companies. Travis did famously Scour, Napster, but none of those ever made any money. In fact, they all went away. And Netflix and Spotify became eventually what P2P was and became today. So these bubbles are very important, I think, in society. And now they move faster because we have social media. So what's different about the crypto bubble than the Web 1.0 bubble was the Web 1.0 bubble, that happened from 94 to 2000. It was 6 years. And boy, did I have a great run with Gordon running Silicon Valley Reporter and being a journalist and an entrepreneur and doing conferences. But this one is occurring over half that amount of time, and it's 10 times bigger, I think. And now, will the impact be lasting is the question that I have. And so I think, to your original question, would you invest in any of these companies? Well, giving money to somebody with no experience for writing a white paper is a horrible decision to make as an investor. If you've done that, you're an idiot, and you will get $0 back in all likelihood. People should be given money after they make stuff, and there should be a process. Now, does that mean that one of these companies that has been given $100 million will not have manifest destiny and it will actually result in something good? It's quite possible that it will. But as an investment strategy, it is the worst possible strategy to give people who are good promoters and bullshit artists who make white papers money, as opposed to people who actually build things. The reward, and what we do in Silicon Valley today when we invest, is we look for traction. We look for builders. We look for people who actually make stuff. And in this crypto bubble, you have people from around the world throwing money into projects behind people who have no experience, and I don't think most of them will ever deliver their products. So if you've made money in crypto, sell half and bank the win, and then let the rest ride. If you have not banked the win, you are a fool, because this will all be coming crashing down. And then from those ashes will come the Amazon. But if you've made a shit ton of money now, take the money and buy a house 100 feet back from the ocean, because global warming is going to happen, and so like maybe 14th Street or like Lincoln, somewhere between there is where the beachfront property will be. Anyway, it's a long answer to your very good question.
I live in Fontana, so it's 65 miles from here, so.
That'll be beachfront in 200 years.
But it's an interesting take, because I look at bubbles more as exercise for your marathon run. I feel like people who work for groceries and web, all those delivery companies and Web 1.0, those engineers now know what works and what doesn't work. So now when they're working for Instacart or DoorDash, they know, like, hey, let's not do this. There was a physical aspect of it. Knocking on somebody's door and delivering food at 9 in the night is something that we shouldn't be aiming for, because there's like a cultural or a shock. So I feel like even in the crypto space, if there is a bubble, I feel that bubble is, to an extent, good. I mean, there'll always be bad aspects of it. Bad aspects are there today also. We have stock market crashes. We have Bernie Madoff and all of that. I feel that on the ICO side, it's running so fast, and the exponential way it's growing, it's just going to make, it's like the decentralization of getting every developer, every person in the world, like, just get their knowledge high up. Yes, they will make some bets which are not going to be good, but at the end of the day, they will realize, like, that is what I shouldn't be doing. It's like a learning process, right? So I feel if they do lose some money, that's okay, but it took us 30 years probably for the internet penetration, and so forth. So it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to get everyone plugged into the tech world.
The problem is, if you invite civilians to invest in these securities, and they are securities, this idea that these are utilities is it's fine for you to believe that you have a utility token, but in 100% of the cases, the people buying them on Signal or Telegram in these crazy groups where people are hyping it or clicking on Google ads or clicking on Snapchat and Instagram ads to buy securities, if you believe it's a utility token in your heart of heart, that's not what matters. What actually matters is the perception of the individual, and if they feel they've lost their money and they were screwed, they will sue you. And what I've learned in this life is that people can sue you when they're wrong, and you can delude yourself into thinking you're right, and it doesn't matter. You will still be dragged through the mud for a decade or 5 years, which is exactly what happened when the dot-com bust happened. All of these investors, all of these public companies, everybody remembers Henry Blodgett getting banned for life. That is exactly what will happen here. So I suggest that you do not be involved in hyping any of these ICOs, and that you do not raise money until you've built your product. If you raise money before you build your product, and you invest in a company before it builds its product too early, or maybe there should be some staggered way of taking the money. So if Tezos raises $200 million, the idea that they take $20 million, I mean, the investors going into it knew they were going to sweep that money.
Right.
But if you did that in the venture space, we would take legal action. It would be criminal, if you just took 20% of the money you raised. And there's a reason for that. You've totally disincentivized the management team from doing anything but hyping the currency.
Right.
So there are a lot of warning signs here, and I would just advise everybody to, if you have had massive appreciation, to take a lot of chips off the table. Bank the win with half your currency and then let the other half ride, but be very careful about putting your name and associating with things that are not real and raising too much money, because it will be a disaster, and the SEC and other finance organizations are humorless. They are humorless. They exist with very principled people. I have dealt with them before. Extremely principled people work at these government organizations. And when they feel that consumers have been ripped off, and when they look at the Google ads that I tweeted last night, or the Snapchat ads or the Instagram ads, if those people lose, even if they knew there was a possibility of losing, they will come after you as an ICO participant, a creator of an ICO or a platform. They are going to come after you, and they are going to do it to make an example of you. And they are going to win and destroy you in all likelihood. 99% chance they will absolutely annihilate you and ban you from life, like they did Henry Blodgett. And they just caught him with a couple of emails. And Mary Meeker and Frank Quattrone dodged a bullet in that case. But other people banned for life, and other people, they went to jail. People forget this. That's why I asked who's over 35. If you're under 35, you need to get a lesson on exactly how dangerous it is to ask people for money in this case. And to take money. Just be careful is all I'm saying.
Right.
Somebody said boo. That's okay. You can boo. Some people can clap. Some people
Well, so let me take the other side of that.
Please.
Right. So as a founder, specifically in the angel investing realm, majority of the time, those angel investors are basically funding you based on the relationship and the chemistry that's happening between the angel investor and the founder. And there's not much built at that point other than maybe a prototype, just a PowerPoint slide deck.
Not anymore. 10 years ago, you'd be correct.
Right.
But 10 years ago, it was usually this person has worked at these two companies, and they sold this company, and they built a prototype. Now, to get into Y Combinator or Launch Incubator, you actually have to have your product launched.
True.
So because there's so many companies out there, and it's so cheap to get your product launched, why do you need to raise $100 million when the product is going to cost $250,000 to build the prototype? So I think you have people investing in these companies without ever meeting the founding teams under a FOMA, a fear of missing out.
Right.
And that's what's very concerning and alarming to me.
Right.
Because I've seen this movie so many times. When a Y Combinator company 2 years ago would try to high pressure me, we're closing the round, you're going to miss out. I'd say, but isn't there going to be a seed round and a Series A and a Series B? I'm not going to miss out. And inevitably, those people came back 3 weeks later, 3 months later, and we're still raising. So the high pressure tactics and the way we are the antithesis of how you should correctly invest. And in the book, which I hope people, if you're investing in companies in crypto, you really should read the book, because in it I explain all my mistakes and after investing in 150 companies and having 6 turn into unicorns. And one of my golden rules here is to judge people by the craftsmanship of their product and to get to know the founders really well. In fact, the real way to invest is, to your point about chemistry, I would say it's not exactly chemistry, it's determining if this person is going to succeed in their life. If you determine that this person will be successful in their life, like it was obvious with Travis that he would be successful, then you can look at Scour, you can look at Red Swoosh, and then when he did Uber, you can say, well, this is the hardest working, most insightful, considered person I've met in my life, or one of them.
Right.
It's an easy bet to invest in Uber or whatever his next company will be.
But with Uber, the scenario is slightly different because you knew Travis Kalanick beforehand, right?
Correct.
Imagine, and I believe you...
But with Thumbtack, I didn't. I just
Right.
met Marco, and I looked at Thumbtack, and I was a second investor in that company, which is $1 billion company now. And the product was so well designed in the
Right.
early stage.
Yep.
And he had built it with his friend for, sweat equity. It was obvious that he was going to win in his life in this company or the next, or the
Right.
next.
Right.
So you can make that determination just by looking at the product, too.
Got it. Let's talk about Uber.
Yeah.
You're going to, in your strategy is to make small bets, right? 10, 20 companies a year, and then...
30 companies a year now. Next year, I'll probably do 60.
Right, so 30 companies a year. Now...
That's a lot of companies, by the way.
Right, right.
I know for ICO people who do 30 a day, and they flip them and trade them, I know that seems like crazy. That's one of the wonderful things about this, is how outrageously optimistic and risk-taking this group of people is. That will result in an Amazon, I'm sure.
But it's also, I look at it like how Vegas housing development works. Like every couple of years, the Vegas region expands,
Yeah.
and then it crashes and it contracts. But then when the next expansion happens, it just overruns the previous one.
Yep.
And I feel that the ICO is just mimicking what happened with Web 1.0.
Yep, absolutely it is.
And it's going to do that, and a lot of technology is going to come out of it. A lot of understanding is going to come out of it, and it's instead of being centralized with just few folks, it's now getting spread out and decentralizing it. I understand there's a risk for the securities and the regulation, but I also feel that we are now bringing all the people into the fold.
I love the fact that there's more investors. That's a huge win. As long as those investors are only investing low single-digit percentage of their net worth. So in the book, I tell people the right percentage for a person who is an accredited investor might be 1 to 5%, maybe upwards of 10% of their net worth if they want to do this 20, 30, 40 hours a week.
Right.
And in crypto, I hope the people who are doing this are not taking their $250,000 life savings and
Right.
putting it into crypto. And that's what I fear will happen, because I am having Uber drivers ask me what ICOs I recommend.
Isn't that a good thing, though?
No, that is the worst possible thing. It is horrible, because if they're doing a small percentage of their work, of their investment, it's fine. But if they put all of their money into it, then
Right.
it's a problem. So it really depends on how educated they are. That is the sign of a bubble, is when, I remember, like it was yesterday, I was at a gas station. This dates the conversation because it was a gas-powered combustion engine. But I was at a gas station in Manhattan, which also dates it because there's no more gas stations in Manhattan. And the guy who was the attendant was asking me what stock he should buy on the internet. And it was
Right.
like, oh boy. The gas attendant who's making $5 an hour wants to start investing in this. So I like the idea that everybody invests as long as they do the work and the companies are real. And we all know, just look across the board, the people who are involved in this revolution, some percentage are scammers, some percentage are legit, and some percentage are just delusional people with no experience.
Right.
I'm waiting. I'm just sitting back and just watching. And I know one of those crazy delusional people is going to be the Bezos, is going to be the Bill Gates, And then there'll be a couple of Theranos too in there. But the right strategy for investors is either to trade this and, like on a daily basis, like some people are doing, and just reap profits off of dopey people buying everything, or to sit back and just wait for the winners to emerge. That's the smarter thing to do. Wait to see which one of these get traction, because those companies, if you bought Amazon in year 1 through 5, you did wonderfully. If you bought it in years 1 through 10, you did wonderfully. And if you bought it last year, you did wonderfully. Same thing with Google, And, same thing with Netflix, right?
Got it.
You can get in any time in the first 10 years of a great company and make an incredible return. So I'm waiting, and I asked people, what's the best company at dinner last night? And they didn't have any companies, really. They had projects. Like, projects. This is an awesome project. So, okay, does this project have revenue or a product or customers or employees? It's like, no. Okay, that's a hobby.
But then
It's not a business.
But wouldn't we want to encourage them to go build it, just like you encouraged me without having anything, and you said, yes, I'll come over.
Yeah, but I didn't say to you, yes, here's $200 million, put $20 million in your pocket, and put $180 million in Switzerland. If I told you that a bunch of people gave founders $200 million, they took 20 million or 40 million of it, and then put the rest in Switzerland, you'd say, oh, that's like a James Bond film, right? Like, they're like some supervillain. And it's like, really, you hid the money in Zurg or Zug or whatever the fuck this place is? Like, it doesn't matter what the name of the place is. It sounds like a supervillain from a Marvel film.
We have to take you to Zug.
Anyway,
which is the next conference?
There's real technology here. So I don't want to make anybody think that I don't appreciate how powerful this is. It's very powerful because it's open, source, and distributed and uncontrollable. And the last great uncontrollable thing was the internet and then open source software in general and RSS. So there's a long history of these open projects doing very well. And I was talking to Gordon Gould earlier this morning, and I was like, I think Bitcoin could go to zero. And he's like, well, if it was going to go zero, wouldn't it have gone to zero already? And I said, that's a very good point. If it hasn't been broken yet, maybe it is actually unbreakable like the internet. Because I remember the conversations that Gordon and I would have about the internet back in the day. It was always, I wonder if somebody could take the internet down. That was like a big concern. And I had that concern about Bitcoin. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm an old fart now. I actually think that Bitcoin can be taken down. Am I wrong or am I right about that? And I know Bitcoin is manipulated massively. Like, if you put an open platform with currency on it, of course it's going to be manipulated. People manipulate Amazon affiliates, and there's not a lot of money to be made there. People manipulate SEO. Of course they're massively, massively manipulating Bitcoin.
Do you hold Bitcoin, Jason?
I hold 0 cryptocurrencies right now.
None?
No, I have a massive advantage investing in startups, like with real products, with real revenue. And I have a massive advantage over anybody else because of my reputation in Silicon Valley and my access to deals. In crypto, I do not have that. So one of the secrets of being a great investor is knowing where you have massive advantage over other people. But where I will, and like, so I don't do public stocks either because I don't have the ability to compete against those public people who own large portions of public companies. And I don't have the information advantage they have. So I think for the crypto people who are here, being involved in this like very like murky time is going to be a massive asset in 3, 4, 5 years because you're going to know who the bullshit artists are and who the legit people are. When the tide goes out on this thing, you're going to see who's naked, right? And a lot of people are going to get caught with their pants down. Like, it's going to be brutal when the tide goes out.
Right.
I think it's wise to spend time here because there'll be an Amazon and a Netflix in this group. But for me as a person who invests in companies and builds companies, there's no companies here yet. There are no companies. They're projects. They're just projects. They're just a bunch of people who wrote a white paper. When I see one of these hire their 20th employee and put their 2.0 product in, yeah, sure, then I'll join the board. I'll put $1 million in. I'll put $5 million into the company. We'll get a board of directors going. Hopefully they'll need us.
Right.
There is this existential risk that when Vinnie Lingham raises $30 million for Civic, he doesn't need to ever raise venture capital again. So that is one of my concerns as an investor is like the next Amazon may not need investors.
So does that mean in your...
They might not. It's possible. Or they may not need them for the first 3 rounds. But they'll always need a good board, advice, marketing, and the other stuff I provide. So I'm not worried about me.
But
and frankly, I'm not worried about the venture industry either because, you know...
But these companies that are doing a TGE, token generation events, they typically don't need to have a board. You know, and they don't need to, give away a portion of. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, governance is super important for companies. When companies have bad governance, it doesn't go well. A lot of the companies in the Y Combinator's classes of 2013, 14, 15 were told to not have governance. It was like an adversarial relationship, and a lot of with the investors have no board. And then what happened was when they hit a bump, there was nobody who had enough of a percentage or enough at stake to save the company. And I had over and over again people from that 2013 to 2015 class of hype come to me and say, the biggest mistake I ever made was not having governance, not having a lead investor, doing a convertible note that was uncapped. Nobody knew what they owned in the companies. So this idea that it's cool to have no governance, like, that is 100% incorrect. The idea that the investors are the adversaries is overwhelmingly not true. It's a farcical concept. It may feel cool to take all this money down and to sweep 20% of it, but I think the SEC and some other folks are going to come down super hard, and we're already starting to see
A little bit of
a
that.
little bit of it. And I can tell you, once the SEC starts getting rolling on this, or other government organizations, all they have to see is one grandma lose her life savings, and then you get one attorney general in one town in Tallahassee or Boise, Idaho, wherever the fuck that person lost their money, and they just say, you know what? We're going to get those people, and we're going to string them up and get that money back. And it's good. And you can, I'm telling you, you are going to be judged at the jurisdiction in that location where
Right.
that person lost their money, and you're going to be flying to Tallahassee with your attorneys hoping to stay out of jail. If you took money from them
Right.
and they bought it off of one of these ads thinking that it was going to appreciate, you're going to say to some local yokel courtroom, well, it was a utility token. They're going to say, what's that? Utility token? No, you took her money for a share in the company. You say, no, it's a utility token. They're going to say, guilty. Boom. That's it. It's over. So just be eyes wide open about it, right? And if people feel that they've been treated unfairly,
Right.
the test is, in a lot of legal cases, is, you know, by a jury, or in other cases, like, if people feel they've been duped, the legal system, in the spirit of the legal system, starts to, you know, get to work. And we've seen that happen over and over again. So anyway, I don't want anybody to think or take away from this that I am anti-crypto or anti-Bitcoin or Ledger. All this shit is very real. But these ICOs and the way they're being marketed is a complete and utter disaster. It is the opposite of how proper investing should be done. Proper investing should be done by face-to-face meetings, multiple meetings, getting to know the team, and figuring out how you can provide value to them. And that's not happening here, so it's very alarming. And there'll be an Amazon that comes out of it that makes up for all the money lost. So while most people will lose their money, there'll be a small number of people who will hit that Amazon, and their wealth will be tremendous. So you want to be that person. So all you have to do is pick the Amazon out of the 5,000 companies that you see on these ICOs.
I know we are here to talk about your book.
No, I'm not. Don't worry about the book.
But I do have a question about
okay.
this.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch hats here, so we'll
Okay.
not talk about ICOs anymore.
I hope I'm coming across as the voice of reason. I
Well,
hope this is reasonable.
You're here because we want everybody here attending to understand, learn, and get both sides of the story.
And if you find a real one with a real team, like 6, 7, 8 people who are working full time and are going to make it, please email me, like jason@calacanis.com, and I will go meet with that team, and I will invest in that team when they have some modest traction. I am looking to invest $500,000, $1 million in 2 or 3 of these companies, like I did with Abra, and I can invest $50,000 to $2 million in a company, no problem. Just find me a great company. But I am not finding great companies. I'm finding intriguing projects and concepts and ideas, which is great, but not for investing money for a return.
Got it.
Okay,
I'll
back
keep
to your
that in
question.
mind.
Yeah.
So you have...
What's the number one company? Tell me the number one actual product for an ICO. The
Bitcoin.
product. No.
Well-
ICO, of the ICOs, which one has the product that you've used that you think is a wonderful, amazing product that delights you in the way that Twitter, Facebook, Uber, Airbnb did when you first used them? Which product is it? 5, 4...
I have Ethereum, the ERC20 token, which allows me to put my money the way I feel should be invested, not controlled by the SEC, not controlled by somebody else. It allows me...
So you're investing into what?
I could invest in Civic. I could invest in Storj.
Okay, so speculation is the best product you've used so far.
I would probably
To be
say
clear.
not speculation. It's more about encouraging that particular product, because once I start using it, it's eat your own dog food kind of a mentality. I want to see what these decentralized storage systems are doing. If a decentralized storage
decentralized storage is the one.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, great. So you have an iPhone?
Yes.
So did you uninstall iCloud and then you're using the decentralized storage system?
I'm using
it doesn't exist?
No, it does exist. Storage has been running for almost 2.5 years.
Are you using it?
I'm not using it on the iPhone.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Are you using it?
I'm using it at...
Where? For what?
For work and for personal backups.
So instead of Dropbox and Google, you're using it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You think most consumers are going to do that?
I'm sorry?
Most consumers are going to do that? They're going to get a benefit from it?
Well, let's go back to the internet. Most consumers didn't understand internet to begin with. It takes some time for them to...
No, I know, but these are big companies who provide a better service with storage going like this. The idea that people want to use a peer-to-peer storage system is something that, like, people who are cyberpunks and are going to see Blade Runner for a 4th time today are totally going to use. But 99% of people are going to go, oh, I'm out of storage? $4.99 for 1 terabyte, okay.
Right.
And they're done.
But Jason, we had the same...
They're not interested in, like, distributed... What, you're going to put my files on 25 different computers? I don't want people seeing my files. No, they're encrypted and they're distributed. I don't want to encrypt them. I want to read them. I can't read them if they're encrypted. No. They're not encrypted on your system. They're distributed. This is a crazy idea.
But
it's not going to work in all likelihood. 99% chance of failure.
But Jason,
my point is, nobody here has one product they're using that has been ICO'd.
But Jason, we had the same hesitation with Uber. Nobody wanted to get into somebody's car or somebody's home.
There were black cars when they started, so it wasn't that scary. And we knew in week 1 that people would use it because it was a real product. And we invested. There were 2 cabs on the road, and we were using the app for them.
All right, we'll go back to the book. All right, let's get to the book.
This is the big, important revelation of this talk. Yes, I actually have seen Steam It. And the content was terrible. The web design was horrible. And it looked like something that was built 8 years ago. Okay, so that was complete utter garbage. I don't know if it's working or not, but fine. I don't know who's using it, but I loaded it, and it was the worst web design I've seen, like, for like a decade. So whoever made it needs to spend whatever money they raised in their ICO on hiring a proper designer and building that product out. But anyway, that is a real product. How many people use Steam It today? Okay, great. That's actually interesting. So maybe that's the one. Maybe that's the Amazon and all of this. If it is the Amazon, hire a designer. Go ahead.
So Jason.
The point is, you have to build real companies. And so if you've raised this money with an ICO, get to work. Like, do the work and build products that delight customers like we're doing in Silicon Valley every week. You have to ship product. There's no shipped products here. Everybody's speculating, nobody's shipping. Enough speculating. If you take anything from this conference, no more speculation, shipping. Ship product that delights consumers.
Nice.
And you'll be fine.
Fine.
Okay.
Are you coming here next year?
Are you having it next year?
Well, I changed my mind.
Can we be part? Listen, you were a volunteer at my conferences. You took my team and playbook and you made this event.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah. Can we be partners on the next one? Can I buy half the conference from you? How much does this conference make? I'll buy half the conference. I'll tell you what. Right now, I will buy half the conference from you and we'll be partners. Don't ICO it. Don't ICO. No ICO. No ICO. Don't ICO the conference. I'll buy half from you. We'll be partners.
You know, honestly...
and then you can use my whole team, and you just show up, and you got all my resources. I'll buy half from you right now.
Wait, hang on a second.
We'll talk later. You already are using half my team and my whole playbook, so I might as well get some residual on this. Anyway, I'm fascinated by it. I think Kurt deserves a big round of applause for putting this on.
Thank you.
And for being a good sport as I break chops. I'm just trying to get everybody focused here. Focus on what matters. Product is all that matters. Delighting customers is all that matters. 99% of the energy in this room is ICOs and raising money. You got to slow that down and flip the script. 1% of the time raising money, 99% of the time building products that delight customers. That's what the ratio needs to be.
Right.
Go ahead.
Forget the book.
Okay.
Are you going to go Are you going to become Mayor Jason?
MayorJason.com. I have the domain.
Yep. But are you going to run for it? Because I've been always curious about that. What's happening with that?
All right. I'll be, since you have volunteered, how many days of your life at my events? 25?
Give or take.
Like a month you put in.
2013,
And you got paid exactly zero.
Zero.
I really appreciate being a volunteer. And the companies who come to launch, who don't pay, appreciate you too. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
And it means a lot. So I'll give you this huge announcement about MayorJason.com.
Okay.
Okay. So it started as a joke.
Okay.
Because I was at the poker game, and Trump won. And we were all like, somebody just basically said, like, Trump won, like, that means, like, Jason could win. Like, he could be mayor or something. And then somebody's like, you would be a great mayor. And I was like, I definitely would be a great mayor. I'd be the greatest mayor ever. And all these ICOs are total bullshit, except for mine, which is the hugest, The Apprentice, ICO.com. And so I was like, this is clearly a great moment in history, because Trump has lowered the bar so low that now people think I'm overqualified. So at the poker table, I registered MayorJason.com, and I redirected it, and then I started talking about solving problems.
Right.
And I said, listen, and now you've probably been watching me on TV talking a little bit about solving problems. I said, we need an innovation party. We have the Republicans and the Democrats who want to fight over ideology. The truth is, the problems that we face are so complex that they will not be solved by ideologies. They will be solved by taking the lean startup method, the testing method that we've refined in Silicon Valley and startups for 3 decades, and applying it with dexterity and without a position. We should be studying the data and trying 5 different ways to deal with homelessness, or 50. And any idea is a good idea. Let's test it, let's fund it, let's look at the data, and then we'll try to solve homelessness, but not by coming to it as a Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian. We will have the reasoned parties. And then somebody's like, wow, you do sound like a politician. That was really fucking good. And I was like, okay, great. And then they said, here's $1.5 million, and they gave me $1.5 million for my mayoral fund.
Got it.
And these are really rich, powerful internet people that you know. And so I'm happy to announce today that I am considering running for mayor of San Francisco because the money's been put up. And I have the domain name. And from what I understand, the domain name's like 50% of this. Like, once you have the domain name, I think you're halfway there. And then if you have $1.5 million to run...
And plus you have a Twitter account, right?
And I just have to beat, like, Ed Lee. This guy's terrible. He's horrible. He's totally unqualified.
Well, I wasn't planning on asking
I would say
you
it's a 10% chance that I'll run for mayor of San Francisco.
Let's pretend you're the mayor. What are the 2 things you're going to do right off the bat?
Yeah, so I've been talking to people about the platform and what the platform would be. So right off the bat, people hate traffic. So if we solve traffic...
LA hates traffic as well.
Yes. So if you solve traffic, you will be a hero. So here's my idea. People are parking their cars on the street during rush hour in San Francisco. That would be like parking on La Cienega during rush hour. You know, they tow everybody.
Right.
You're just not allowed to park on Wilshire and Santa Monica Boulevard during rush hour. So if we just did that in San Francisco and did congestion pricing, we could actually make traffic move. So I'd solve traffic, and then I would do a one-time amnesty where if people paid, we would let them build an extra 5 or 10 stories on their building.
Got it.
But they would have to pay the taxes in advance for 10 years on that, the property taxes, to have the right. So all the real estate speculators in San Francisco would be like, okay, well, I get 10 more stories, I will give you $100 million. Now I'll raise it, and then I'll give it to the city. And then I would redeploy that money to add a BART station, for every year of my term, which would then make me a fucking crazy hero to San Francisco. Because they'd be like, oh my God, the reason San Francisco is so terrible is there's no transit system. And that's why things are exacerbated, because of the transit system. So I'll just solve transportation, and I'll just raise a shit ton of money by letting people have more air rights. And then some environmentalists will complain, and then I'll be like, listen, if you want a hippy-dippy mayor, you have one. You picked Bloomberg to be the mayor. Like, we're going to get this shit organized, and it's going to be capitalism. We're going to clean up the city. And it may work.
Nice.
But
well, you could take some of that fund coming in and give it to Elon Musk and say we could use your...
Tunnels.
Or
just ICO the city. We're going to ICO the city. We're going to ICO San Francisco. Every square foot will be ICO'd, and we'll raise $1 trillion.
Jason, make up your mind. Are you for an ICO or against an ICO?
Okay, to be clear, The technology is fucking amazing. If science figures out a way to raise this money using an ICO, I will be right behind them.
Got it.
But literally, like, they're running up the hill, and I see all the arrows, so I'm just like, this is like Mike Jones running up the hill and Peter Pham, and I'm like this, right behind him. And the arrows are coming, and I was like, okay, you guys take the arrows, and then if the SEC does not squash them, I'll run up the hill right behind them and take credit for all their effort. But until then, no fucking way I'm taking money from people in China or India or wherever these crypto, Ethereum people are shipping their money in Telegram rooms. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. You got to be very careful that you know who this money is coming from, and that if investing is risky. If you lose that money, like I said earlier, people will take legal action against you, whether they're right or wrong, and you're going to have to deal with that. Whereas with sophisticated investors, they know that they've invested in 50 different venture funds or 100, right. So they can't claim that in the 100 first they didn't know the risk of the other 100 there. These are first-time buyers in a lot of cases with these ICOs. So that's what's very concerning, is these are new buyers buying, projects. That's the combination that makes this scary. New investors, unsophisticated investors buying unsophisticated founders' ideas for companies. If they were sophisticated in doing it, it would be no problem. If the companies were real, it would be no problem. But when you have both of these switches flipped the wrong direction, the plane is going to careen. So one of these switches has to be flipped. And if you could flip making those investors sophisticated, great, but you can't. You can't just make an unsophisticated investor who's invested in 50 companies for the first time that are white paper sophisticated. You have to wait 10 years for them to be sophisticated. But you can flip, I'm going to deliver the product. And that's the real message I have, is if you want to avoid all these problems, ship. Ship great products, then ICO. The regulation should be, you should only be able to raise like $1 million or $2 million or $5 million in an ICO until you've actually shipped the product, and then you should be allowed to do the next tranche. Or people should self-regulate and say, we're going to raise an unlimited amount, but we're going to put it into escrow where you can pull it back if we don't hit these milestones. That would be a better solution. So these $200 million raised by Tezos, I hope that it works out for everybody. But the better model would be, we raise $200 million, we're going to deploy $200 million, $20 million a year for 10 years, and at any point in time, you can take out 1/10 of your money, or whatever's remaining. You could literally pull it out. That would solve their whole problem. But I'm so impressed that they raised $200 million, but I don't need money, so I'm not racing into this going, oh, I need to get in on this. The FOMA has zero effect on me. I'm doing great investing in real companies. So the FOMA-driven purchases are very dangerous. And I just really want people to understand that. And just please ship your products.
Well, on that note,
thank you, Kurt.
Mayor Jason, I hope you win.
I hope I win too.
And guys,
I hope I have your vote. Read the book.
He's going to be here on the floor.
I will sign the books.
And he'll sign the book. Thank you. Thank you, Jason, for coming. Really appreciate it.
So good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So that was an amazing panel. That was fantastic. It's hard to beat a declaration for a mayoral race combined with a stern warning. So I'm glad that folks are still here and focused on this, because we're going to talk about essentially the other side. So there's been a lot of conversation about how to do an ICO, a TGE, a token sale, whatever you want to call it. But we haven't talked about who's really on the other side. We've talked about the grandmas in Tallahassee, and that's a point well taken. But what's interesting about this space is it's maturing and growing so quickly as a real incredible capital market. And so when I started looking at this space, I want to say a year and a half ago, this to me looked like the emerging markets. This was a nascent space, understudied, underinvested, and it was growing so quickly. You can see the velocity of money really accelerate. And so over the last year, you know, when we were looking at the stats last year, it was incredible. Oh, okay, we raised as a market $160 million, and the highest estimate for this year in May was still somewhere around $1 billion, and we're well past that. And so the question is, really, sure, there are a lot of small buyers in this space, but there are really meaningful, large, institutional-grade buyers, investors that are spending time and thinking constructively about the investment thesis, the models, the platforms, the protocols, and how it's going to impact our future. And so what we're going to talk about here is what are those frameworks? How are people approaching this space? What are the analytics and the tools they're employing? And where did they come from? And why now is the time to be in this space? So with me, I have three great investors, some of them of whom you probably don't know. So with us, I think, Spencer, you're probably the most prolific in terms of writing on this space. You were one of the only folks on Wall Street covering this, and you're now at BlockChain Capital, spending time investing in this space. Darsh, you come from traditional finance as well, and we're focused on kind of traditional capital markets. And Tucker's probably the most under the radar but most prolific, very early investor in this space and has a depth of knowledge. So tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and what made the transition from traditional finance into crypto economics or this space. Darsh, do you want to start a little bit?
Sure. So I have a background as an engineer and mathematician. I used to work in U.S. intelligence before working in finance and helped build an investment platform over the last 6 years. Manages a little under $1 billion. And the transition came, caught the bug, went down the rabbit hole, and it turns out that many financial institutions were unable to hold some of these assets just from a fiduciary or platform. It's too new, and the regulations and groups don't want to risk their franchise taking bets on this type of thing. And so what brought me to focus on the space was I really wanted to do it. The partners I was working with did not want to, so I spun out and basically left that firm. They were our first investors, and our platform now is exclusively focused on digital assets.
Spencer?
Yeah, and so, oh, sorry, I'm bumping. I expected to fight for elbow room on the plane on the way here, but I didn't realize I'd be doing it on stage as well. So I come from a traditional financial background, Wall Street, covering, doing sell-side equity research, so putting out buy and sell ratings, price targets on companies, publicly traded companies. Was covering the software and internet space, which at the time I thought was kind of the most disruptive thing on the one hand, but then on the other hand, you kind of have that crypto side thing going on that's a lot more interesting. And fortunately, was able to kind of parlay those two things together and ended up publishing Wall Street's first kind of broad industry report highlighting blockchain technology, and then was very actively covering Bitcoin before joining BlockChain Capital earlier this year.
Hey, I'm Tucker Waterman. I come from the media space based in LA. We were doing private equity, investing in intellectual property rights for about 8 years, and just stumbled upon Bitcoin in about 2013, and then jumped on the Bitcoin talk forums and immediately saw that what's happening today was going to be happening, and created a diversified portfolio through a hedge fund in altcoins, or at the time they called them shitcoins, but it worked out.
So how would you characterize your investment approach? Are you a fundamental value investor? Are you a momentum investor? Are you a growth investor? Are you a Soros disciple? How do you think about your approach?
We look at it just typically from a value investor perspective, very similar to a venture capital approach where we meet most of the teams. At least we have a number of conversations with them, build the relationship, and we buy and hold these things unless there's a reason to do otherwise, which is the benefit, obviously, of having publicly traded tokens. If things change, you can rebalance your positions. So we typically hold them for as long as we can.
Yeah, Blockchain Capital, we are early stage venture investors. So Blockchain Capital as a whole has been the oldest venture firm in the space, dedicated to deploying capital since 2012, 2013. We're biased towards early stage investments, but we'll generally invest across the life cycle. Being a venture fund, we are very much focused on long-term businesses and helping people build actual sustainable applications, protocols, businesses, et cetera, as opposed to kind of short-term, get in and get out over a couple-month horizon.
Our approach is opportunistic, so we have protocols, platforms, and then securities are kind of the three major buckets for us. Protocols being base blockchain, cryptocurrencies, platforms as new things come out, seeing where we think people are developing really unique ideas and platforms for innovation using blockchain technology. And then on the security side, this is kind of coming back to the Soros idea. We feel there's a wave coming in the future, and very few people are positioned to capitalize on security tokens, and so that's an area of focus for us to find real opportunity that there's lots of structural limitations for investors to get to.
So you're talking about protocols, but what are kind of the key taxonomies in your mind for this space? Protocols or platforms or distributed applications, how do you think about the space in general? How do you figure out what your buy box is among those things?
We try not too much to try and put them into buckets because we worry that it kind of blinds us to certain opportunities. And so, we try to recognize that the industry is in pretty early stages, and so we tend to be focused on things that are, important. Kind of infrastructure is definitely the theme that everybody's talking about out there. So that's, we'd certainly agree that that's a lot of what's necessary these days to enable kind of a seamless token world. So we're definitely, thinking about where the industry is, but less trying to put them in specific buckets.
Tucker?
I would agree with that. It is so early. We typically focus on the protocol side or the things that are touching those protocols right now. It's a focus really on where the value is accruing. So you and I had the conversation, in 2014 when we looked at investing in companies, the idea was, where's the value going to go? And it seemed like it would be captured from a diversified perspective in Bitcoin. Today, you look at all these ICOs going on, and you're seeing most of the value. Where is it accruing? Probably in Ether or jumping eventually back into Bitcoin. So that's typically how we're looking at this, and then trying to stay as low as we can to see what everything else is going to be built on top of.
Mm-hmm. Darsh, you and I talked about financial infrastructure as a thesis. How much of your portfolio is that, and how do you see that thesis developing?
Yeah, we've allocated about 10%, or we have funds to allocate up to about 10% to that specific thesis. The challenge for us when we look at this idea of creating taxonomies is most of the stuff that's out there is not blockchain native. Most of the stuff that's out there is trying to solve existing problems in this world using blockchain technology, which is cool. We can gain some efficiency gains, but we're not seeing, it's kind of like if somebody came to you with the idea of Uber and all of us had Nokia cell phones, and we're like, well, what are you even talking about, right? So that's kind of what it feels like in terms of creating these taxonomies. Is a lot of just classifying what we already know and just reclassifying it in blockchain terms. It doesn't really serve us well, or at least me. It sounds like people share that view of it doesn't serve us well to create those taxonomies yet because we just don't know what these sectors or taxonomies will look like when they're designed, exclusively for blockchain, when it's sort of massively accessible by the people.
And I think you mentioned a good point there, just that, a lot of people are focused on let's recreate the businesses that we already know, but with a blockchain backend. And to me, it feels like a lot of the opportunities out there are going to be things that are totally new and we've never seen before and just weren't possible. And it's not going to be recognizable. We can't draw a direct parallel into the non-blockchain world. It'll be new things.
So one of the themes you guys touched on is this is a fundamental venture style approach, but you also have this newfound liquidity capability, right? And what we're seeing over the last, I'd say, 2 months more and more is kind of this trend toward pre-sales and pre-sales. So coming in earlier at a discount or not, but being fairly early. And so how do you mitigate the risk when you do come in early in a pre-sale, months ahead of an offering, that that will actually find traction with a broader audience, or that that token will find a market. How do you think about that risk as you do your investing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So we think of this as just like all of our seed stage investing that we've done before for the past few years. You know, try and sit down with the token projects, particularly early, hopefully, you know, maybe 12 months before they're actually ready to do an ICO, and help make sure that we can work with the team, even if it's rough around the edges and it's just an idea. That's kind of the stage that we prefer to get involved. And then as far as, I mean, yeah, so we end up with liquidity opportunities sooner than we otherwise would in kind of traditional venture equity investing, which adds a new element of having to think about risk management. For us, I mean, again, we are long-term holders here, so we're here to, you know, hold these things for many years and hopefully watch them build and grow. But there is a risk management aspect of, you know, if your token pops 10x or something like that, then, you know, it's probably prudent to take your cost off the table.
Tucker, how do you think about that coming in early?
I would say you know it's typically the same strategy you'd look at early stage startups. The one additional piece that I would say is really important is the community element. So you know, obviously these, you know, you're building peer-to-peer open source protocols. Being able to manage and build a community, to have leadership in a way that works. You know, we've seen this in many ways. Some with, you know, no leader. Some with people, you know, who are very front and center, like a guy like Vitalik. Now we're seeing a lot of these ICOs that are more structured like your typical startups. So just understanding sort of how they're going to be building and developing that is really, really important, because that's a huge component of building these networks out.
Yeah, I think when you have an evolution of new capital markets, it starts with access. Access becomes really is sort of the original play, and the play evolves to network. As access, people find out about it, the network grows. And oftentimes people think the network is, as long as you have it, you have access, you can play. But it always evolves to a third step, which is judgment. Once this becomes sort of flat and people can start accessing all these pre-sales, judgment becomes really important. And a lot of judgment is driven by people and communities. That's where I think you can add value, you can find value, is really understanding people. And I think what Jason said was, who do you want, I kind of think of it, who do you want to be long? It's not necessarily the idea. There's lots of great ideas. But who are the people that I want to be long, that I can trust that when things go wrong, they're going to be getting after it. They're going to pick up the phone and say, here's what's went wrong, here's what we're going to do. Versus the people who, when things go wrong, they say, well, that was fun. I'm glad I tried. You know, that's sort of a different mentality that I think a lot of people have right now, because it's sort of a access and network and everybody's getting funded. But I think judgment is a really, really important component if you are getting involved very early.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to emphasize that even more. Again, it's just, I mean, people oftentimes come and ask, like, okay, what are you guys looking for in ICOs? And again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You know, the first thing that we're looking at is team. For a seed stage project, when you're an idea and you're trying to build it out, we really need to believe in the entrepreneur. And so, you know, to the extent that, you know, you're out there considering a project, just make sure that you communicate well with your investors or your partners or people that are in any way working with you. You know, these communities tend to be relatively small, and so, you know, when we call around and ask people, and if they've had a really bad experience with an entrepreneur, they just, you know, weren't forthcoming with information, then, you know, we're going to hear that and it might make us back away. And that doesn't mean that things always have to go well. I mean, we understand that, particularly at a seed stage, a lot of these investments are not going to work out, but it's about being very forthcoming with that information.
And I think also just looking at the economics of these things, you know, just understanding how the token is going to actually work. Is it going to increase in value? That's why we're investing in these things. Also understanding how much these projects are going to be raising. You know, now that we've seen, you know, projects raise upwards of $200 million, that's not a company anymore. That's sort of what we do, which is an asset management business, which is highly intense in terms of operational. To need to do that and run a startup is, I don't understand how they're going to figure these things out, but they're going to have to.
So when you come in this early, you get a seat at the table in some ways, and you get to guide folks. And so an important theme that I think is emerging out of these couple of days, and Jason just hit on it again, and Brock spoke about it at the outset, is governance, right? And so legal issues notwithstanding, where do you think we're going on, you know, broader sort of token sale governance or token governance in general? And we've seen a couple of great efforts. We saw ICO governance as a platform come out, as an organization. Then we saw the Token Alliance in DC come out. Where do you think it's going, and what are you telling people in terms of governance? There's an implied covenant there, right, between the token buyers and the token sellers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we won't see really strong governance and see these things kind of evolve until, unfortunately, we have more pain in the market. it's really hard to get investors to demand more protections and more rights and more say in the governance of a particular project when things are just going upward, which is kind of the market that we've been in over the past 6 months. But when they go downward, people definitely want those things, and they definitely get smarter about demanding them. So I think we'll see this kind of evolve in an iterative fashion over the next few years.
Yeah, I think it's just patience. It's similar strategy is just waiting, seeing what I think the smart and creative people are going to come up with those strategies earlier, knowing that it's coming, because it is.
I agree.
Okay, so I'll put you on the spot a little bit. I mean, Jason brought up an important point of a great asset manager having an edge. And so we've seen lots of folks on the asset management side come into this market driven by beta for the most part. Somebody just held Bitcoin since 2013 and has done well. So what do you think your edge is when you talk to the fiduciaries that are investing in you? And how do you think about beta versus alpha in this market, and what are institutional investors essentially paying for?
I think for us, an edge is just that we've been in the market longer than most people, managing other people's money, which is very different from investing your own assets. And we've been able to, the thesis was built around the idea that diversification in the space would be a benefit. We were able to produce, returns that were greater than just holding one particular asset class. So that's the story that, has helped us. And the past is not a predictor of the future, obviously. So we have to learn, because we're going 100 miles an hour at this bridge and it's not built yet. So we don't have a crystal ball. We're just trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the perspective of blockchain capital, I mean, as far as, an edge, I think that a lot of it comes from just brand and reputation, as far as making sure that you see the best deal flow. And then also, when we're talking to a lot of our LPs and institutional investors, we tell them, hey, listen, if you want to go ahead and incur the brain damage to go ahead and get smart about this stuff, then do it. But this is a space that demands specialization. And, we've already incurred that brain damage over the past 3-4 years. So, it's a little bit easier for you to just go with us. But, hey, if you want to go it alone, that's fine as well.
Yeah, I think the two things that we sort of talk about. One is the trust that's required to manage capital as a fiduciary. And I think those relationships matter. And so it's odd to be at a conference about decentralization, immutability, and trustless networks and talk about trust being really important. But that's a huge component of working with people you trust. That's what capital allocation is all about, ultimately, especially at a seed stage or environments like this. On the edge side, our focus is to try and stay sort of in front of the cutting edge of what's new in token offerings. Not necessarily from an ICO perspective, but specifically around security tokens. We do believe there's going to be a massive proliferation of those tokens, and few people will be positioned to really capitalize on some of those opportunities. And so for us, our edge is not, if I want early stage exposure, these are the two guys I would go to. I'm not the person who's going to get them, frankly, because I haven't been around and other relationships. So I have to establish an edge that's different. And just like in the hedge fund world, there's 15 different ways to have an edge. And so our focus is sort of forward-looking and saying, okay, where's nobody playing? Where's a space that nobody's really captured and dominated? And how can we sort of create a moat in that space? And that's what we're focused on.
What do you think is, from your perspective, a normalized return profile of this space, right? So when we in our organization talk to small investors, some of them are rational, some are not, and some folks are out there expecting 6x on the first day after the token start trading. But when you talk to professional investors, pension funds, what do you tell them in terms of expectations? What is a normal return profile 3, 5, 10 years out for this space, for this new asset class?
We really try to make sure that we don't overpromise here at all. I think that most of the, especially institutional investors, they get that what's going on as far as the return profile that we've seen in just the recent kind of past 6 months is really not sustainable. They don't expect those kind of returns going forward. But I think they do see this as a mega trend, a mega theme going forward. And when you're early on mega trends and mega themes, then returns are appropriately large. But what large is, I don't like to put a specific percentage or X on that.
I think for us, we also just try to be very clear that this still has so many binary components to it that, this might not make it, as far as we think it's going to, for a number of different reasons, regulatory maybe being the most pronounced, but that's also something just to be clear about for everyone.
Very similar. In our conversations with LPs, we talk a lot about the idea that there's no other asset class that you own in your portfolio that you can wake up in the morning and it's just gone. and you have no recourse. So this is sort of risk of zero is it's material, and it's material even if you're right in all of your investments, you still lose all your money, right? And so the risk-reward profile you have to think about very differently than other venture investments in the portfolio. On the upside, what we tell our allocators is simply, if that's the risk on the downside, we believe that we are commensurately rewarded on the upside if we do happen to be there when it's done, and we try and do our best to make sure that happens. But putting a number on it, I think, is just outrageous. I have no idea what it's going to look like.
Just leave the brackets. Right. So we're close to out of time. I'll ask one last question, hopefully that pleases the crowd. Share one idea, something you're excited about, something you're seeing in the market, something you've invested in recently that you think really has legs as a fundamental, organic, interesting story that's gonna, it's addressing a multi-$100 billion market.
I'm very interested in, we invested in both of our funds into a project called Qtum, which is a competitor to Ethereum. It's based in, it's a Singapore-based project. Has a number of differences from a security perspective. The founder is also just, again, going back to how do you identify these projects early, is this is a guy who can answer all the questions that you need answered. You can rip up the code and you can get in there and see that they're building something different. When you look at the amount of nodes on the network, it was kind of like looking back at something like Ethereum, where you just saw the developer community was just so massive that, while it was trading at $7, you knew that this thing was, felt like bigger than Bitcoin at that moment in time. This is one of those projects that I feel that way about.
If I discuss one on the street with people, I'm just going to tell them go for Bitcoin. Just because, a lot of times people feel like they've missed that. It's still really, really early in Bitcoin. Like 0.1% of people in the world own Bitcoin, something like that. And what happens when we go to 1%, which is not for sure, but we're certainly headed that direction. But something maybe from our portfolio that's a little bit even earlier stage than that would be 0x. So, if we think about kind of a future world of lots of tokens on lots of different applications and platforms, you need to be able to enable secure, decentralized, seamless exchange between those tokens so that people don't have to manage a portfolio of 16 different app tokens just to use their phone. So yeah, we love 0x.
I took my two good ideas. So the one I'll do is blockchain capital. Have you heard of that one? Well, actually, I do think it's interesting, and this kind of goes back to the security token idea. BCAP does publish a net asset value. And they publish it regularly, and very frequently the token trades at a discount to net asset value. So if you still use old paradigms of value investing, it's very clear that you're getting a discount. You're getting a discount not only on the existing assets of the portfolio, but on his capability to find great stuff, which I believe in personally. And so BCAP is interesting because it's another way to play the ICO world or the pre-sale world, but you get it at a discount. And so I like discounts like that, and they're much more reliable than the ones that are being pumped and dumped around. So that's my pick.
Wow, that's like a synthetic play on the space. That's fantastic. That's great. All right, so I think that's all the time we have. This is incredible insight. I appreciate you guys joining us here. It's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, sir.
All right, everyone. So my name is Alex Lubinsky, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Renbury.
And my name is Sergey Gritsenko, and I'm a co-founder and chief operations officer at Renbury.
So what is Renbury? Renbury is the absolutely closed-looped rental platform where all of the rental tasks can be done in one place. We started the company back in 2015. At that time, my partners and I, we were looking for a place to rent in San Francisco, and it took us almost 30 days to actually find and rent the place. And so the problem was not lack of inventory, because still in hot markets like San Francisco, New York, there are plenty of properties which are available for rent at any given point of time. The problem was actually rental experience itself. So you had to go through lots of manual tasks like filling paper application, going through the bidding wars where you have no idea who's offering what. And this whole process was really kind of a Stone Age type of environment. So that's why we decided to create Renbury, where all of the tasks would be essentially be done in one place. Since then, we raised $4 million from top-profile investors, such as VC funds from China, Australia, Canada, and the United States. President of Nokia Technologies invested in our company. CEO of Swiss Life, largest insurance company in Switzerland, invested in our company, and many other investors as well. Currently, we have a team of 23 people, and we launched the platform this April of this year, and already have close to 200,000 properties available on the platform, and grow at the rate more than 50% on the monthly basis. And yes, we got lots of media attention as well. This is just some. As a matter of fact, we were featured on TV more than 15 times, not just in the United States, but internationally as well. So when you look at the long-term rental space, more and more people actually prefer to rent than buy properties, because it allows for flexibility, freedom, less risks. We all saw the crisis of 2008, and we know, what kind of disaster it can be. And long-term rental space, in our mind, is the next industry which will be disrupted. Because we got e-commerce, we got social media, we got transportation, but long-term rental space and industry itself is kind of frozen in still like in 1980s or 1990s, essentially. When you look at this industry more closely, you got tenants, you got landlords or homeowners or property managers. Essentially, tenants, they want to rent place much faster, much more transparently, knowing exactly for what they are paying, and save as much money as possible. Landlords, on the other hand, they are looking to fair market value because they bought the place, they spent millions and millions of dollars, so they want to maximize return on the investment, and at the same time, they want to get quality tenant for their property. So currently, when you look at the competition, and this applies not just for the United States, but internationally as well, all of those platforms are essentially classifieds. So they allow you for, searching for the property, to look at the pictures, to look at the descriptions, but that's about it. So no real clear value creation for the end users, which our platform allows. How it works? So actually, it's very simple. We summarize it in 5 little steps. So people can look at the property, they can schedule internally open house visit, they can go and check it out. In a couple of days, they can go back to the platform and submit application, go through the transparent auctioning process. Depending on the supply and demand, depending on the competition, they will know exactly what amount they need to offer in order to get the place. The key, and I will touch base on this a bit later, is that once they are selected by the landlord, they can actually save billions of dollars, and this is kind of worldwide number in rental security deposits. And this is where the blockchain and smart contracts is really applicable on our platform. And at the same time, like little things like pay rent through the platform, hire third-party service providers, be it painters, handymen, house cleaners, doing maintenance requests. All of those type of things can be done through Renbury as well. And now Serge will talk more about kind of efficiencies which we provide to landlords and tenants.
So as many of you in crowd are potential landlords, or as everybody here has had to rent an apartment, there are benefits on both sides. So I'll start with homeowners, people who actually rent out their properties. There are essentially three key components to what can be gained in the platform. And it's transparency. You can easily see your tenants. You can see their credit score, their job, current description, their income, and you can make decisions and educate decisions in one place easily as you look at our platform. You can get a fair rental price for your property based on what market dictates, not overcharging or undercharging in the platform. So what we allow for due to the auction pricing is the market will sort of equate the pricing for your current properties. And ultimately, it's the general score for our future renters, which can be applied in any market, can be seen easily by a renter in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, as currently over 3% of business travelers travel for long-term rentals in different markets. Our platform allows for those homeowners to see that and easily judge the applicant based on that, not just their credit score, because American credit score is not applicable in other markets. We make sure user performance as a landlord, as a tenant and landlord both, they can judge both sides. So on the tenant side, we have an easy-to-use and transparent platform which has a comfortable dashboard where you can come in and see a full rental experience everywhere from searching for an apartment, later going out and actually checking it out in person, and then later applying, submitting all your documents, starting with your credit, and then the full range. And then ultimately, it's an electronic process, so it's easy to use. It's a very pretty-looking platform, so I think the full experience is very easy to go. And I guess the ultimate key here is your upfront savings. And what it is a savings due to your security deposits. And Alex will tell you more about those security deposit savings.
Sure. Thanks, Serge. So blockchain and smart contracts. So we are in the process of integrating blockchain and smart contracts into the platform. We feel that this will provide even an extra layer of efficiency to the users, be it landlords or tenants. The smart contract technology will be implemented throughout the platform, including the application process and auctioning technology. Crowdsourced network, that's essentially when the community will be able to back tenants, qualified tenants, and help them to cover security deposits, and in return receive rewards. So those kind of the main points, and definitely, we offer security, convenience, and many other things where like rental payments, third-party service providers, everything will be done in RNT token. That's our token cryptocurrency for our platform. But those main things, that's what we want to concentrate with this presentation right now. So when you look at the crowdsourced network, more than $500 billion is actually blocked in rental security deposits. And if you look at this, it's unfair, right? So why somebody need to freeze exactly the same amount of money if this person never damages the property or never defaults on the rental payment? When you go to a car dealership, you buy a car, you have a better credit score, you get a better APR. It's fair. Somebody else who defaulted in the past, and have a mediocre credit score, they will need to pay more in interest rate. More than $35 trillion is also sitting in the banks, generating miserable 0.06% on average. People looking for ways to invest capital. If you look at this, where they can go and how they can invest, we got all those Kickstarter platforms. We got, stock exchanges where you can go and try to play there. But people looking for ways to diversify their capital, and our solution and our platform will allow them to actually come in and help out tenants who would want to save on upfront payments in security deposits and in return receive rewards. So we will allow for 90% of security deposits to be backed by the community. 10% will be essentially deductible, such as in case anything will be broken, first tenant will pay 10% to the landlord, and only then the money will be spent. The money that community backed with will be spent to cover the damages for the property. The members of the community will be able to offer different offers for different tenants, because everyone is different, right? So for somebody, I might offer, $100 RNT tokens at 3% yearly interest rate. For somebody else, I might offer exactly the same amount in rent tokens for 5% yearly interest rate. And it will depend on the market, essentially on supply and demand, on the competition, so everything will be balancing each other. Same for the tenants. So tenants will suddenly receive all of those offers from the people who will be able to back them up and save this money up front, and they will pick and choose the best community members who will offer them the opportunity to save this money. It might be somebody who stands out in the community, or it might be somebody who offers better terms. So the market is, as mentioned, is huge. More than $1 trillion is spent on rent each year. As mentioned, $500 billion is actually blocked in rental security deposits, and more than 640 million properties rented across the world each year. We raised $4 million already. The latest round got closed this summer. We have investors from 11 countries, as a matter of fact, invested in our company because they see the same problem not just in the United States, but this kind of international phenomenon. We got people from Australia, New Zealand, China, Canada, UK, Germany, Switzerland, France, Italy, Poland, and Qatar, and United States, investing in our business, and they want to see our platform expand, not just locally in the United States. And by the way, we are national, so our platform is nationally available, and we are already present in more than 3,600 cities in the United States. But we plan to go and expand internationally as well to other countries and to offer our services there, and we feel that blockchain and smart contracts technology will allow for this to happen in a much more seamless way. So we will be doing token sale on November 20th. Next week we will start doing pre-sale, or essentially kind of private sales. And if you're interested, you can check it out, our website, rnt.randberry.com. If you want to check it out, our platform, you just go to randberry.com without RNT. RNT is our token name for our token. And if you have more questions, you can always reach me. This is my contact information. Our office is based in San Francisco. We have a team of 23 people already in the company. Most of those are engineers, including backend developers and blockchain developers. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed, and we'll check us out.
Hey folks, if you haven't picked up your books, if you have a paid VIP pass, just quickly go grab your books because Jason is still out there signing. If you guys don't pick up your books, we'll be giving them away to folks who want those books. So there's a huge demand. Please get your book signed and come right back, all right? Thank you.
All right, we're good?
Right. Hi. Greetings, everyone. Alpha Point, we're a 4-year-old, 40-person headcount company headquartered in New York. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the convergence of traditional financial services as we know it today and the crypto space that we're all here to kind of celebrate and learn more about. I'm going to speak from the vantage point of the company that I work at. And just for a quick heads up, I'm going to give a little bit of detail about who we are and what we do. Alpha Point is located at the nexus of traditional finance and the crypto space. We're focused on providing value to communities through creating, let's say, liquid active markets. We do this in a few different ways. If there's an asset that needs to be digitized or really blockchainified, that is represented on a distributed ledger, we go ahead and do that digitization work. And now for those blockchain-based assets or for Bitcoin, Ether, or whatever ICO it may be, we then launch marketplaces for those assets. And we do this to solve a number of problems. Some of our clients are the biggest options and futures exchange in the world, the CME Group, or a 1,000-year-old institution called the Royal Mint, we'll talk about a little bit later on, as well as some of the most technically advanced Bitcoin exchanges and crypto exchanges in the world today. Bit, a company you heard about yesterday, which Justin from NetKey spoke about. We'll go into that a little bit later as well. So just another recap about Alpha Point. We are focused on a variety of different asset classes, commodities, currencies, ICOs, wealth management, loans, private shares. We do this, we service these asset classes with our entire technology stack, which runs from the front office where you have traders and retail users interacting with assets, placing buy orders and sell orders, to the middle office, where you have risk and compliance professionals based, and to the back office. This is the sort of IT infrastructure, the blockchain data fabric that we all know so well. Quickly, before we jump into the use cases and the problems that blockchain helps us solve that our clients are interested in, I'm sure that you're all interested in, I wanted us to take a moment to reassess what a blockchain is. We have a lot of technical descriptions, but I think a functional how does it work description that I know I like and that others have sort of shared in New York is that a blockchain is a tool for collaboration. It's effectively a tool that leverages unique, historic incentive mechanisms to enable communities of users to synchronize, that is, to come into agreement on, and also to etch into stone, a set of facts that are important for their livelihood or for the viability of their community. And it also enables them to mutualize the cost of that, rather than relying on a sort of outside intermediary. They're able to run the infrastructure themselves. So with that in mind, let's talk about a few problems that this kind of infrastructure helps us solve. And these are use cases that are live right now, or in some cases that are going live this quarter. So the first, and maybe the most well-known, is a problem with gold settlement. Gold trades today typically take between 2 and 3 days to settle. This is a real problem. Gold is viable as collateral for trading. It has a ton of other use cases. It's a very interesting asset class. 2 to 3 days for settlement time on average wasn't acceptable for CME Group, our customer. It wasn't acceptable even for a 1,000-year-old institution called the Royal Mint, which is run by the UK Treasury and which used to be helmed by Sir Isaac Newton. So the Royal Mint and CME came to us and they said, we want gold to settle in under 10 minutes. And we've been looking at Bitcoin, we've been looking at blockchain, and we think maybe this technology can help us do that. About a year later, a year and a half later, going live, we believe later this year, is the CME's first 24/7 exchange. We've partnered with a company called BitGo, who I think you know, to create the wallet system. And what we have here is essentially a settlement system that takes all the great attributes of Bitcoin, but applies them to gold. So you can think of this as sort of an original version of digital gold, right? That's sort of, I would say, our best known use case. Second one, and one we heard about yesterday, is a company called Bit, based in the Caribbean. Now, I haven't been to the Caribbean for a couple of years, but I do remember island-to-island commerce being incredibly difficult. This is an inconvenience for me, but for people that live there, it's really a threat to their way of life. Island-to-island commerce for small merchants and individuals is often out of reach. So Bit, also incensed by this, went to the Bank of Barbados through a long, sustained education process, they showed the central bank that it's possible to create rapidly settling, versions of digital currency or of national currency digitized on a public blockchain to make that available to create a PayPal-type system in the Caribbean. What we have now is an agreement with Bank of Barbados, BIT, and Alpha Point that basically enables PayPal-like functionality across islands. It seems simple, but with the sort of older, archaic banking infrastructure that we had in place in the Caribbean prior to this, it just wasn't possible. The last and another exciting use case is private shares, or shares of privately held companies. Think of Uber or Alpha Point or a number of other companies that do not have stock that's traded on a public venue. The short version is, going forward, companies that are able to record their ownership structure on a mutable ledger are going to have a distinct advantage raising capital, because investors will know, all right, this is the capital structure of the company, I know what I'm investing in. You're also going to get, because of much more rapid settlement speeds, just greater velocity overall. This means, significantly greater access to capital for small and medium enterprises, as well as quite a bit more flexibility for shareholders. You're actually going to have transparent, open markets where you can realize your gains on the equity that you've earned. Now, I want to focus on something that maybe isn't so relevant to this audience, but something we encounter every day with our sort of regulated financial organization customers. And this is the fact that they approach blockchain initially as a cost strategy. It's a way for them to reduce their infrastructure and operational footprint and just save money. The other side of that is some see blockchain as a revenue strategy. It's a way to create new asset classes, exotic new instruments, to bring on new customers, new points of engagement. What I want to really stress here, and maybe we've seen this in some of the talks earlier, is that these are two sides of the same coin. The same rock bottom infrastructure that makes cost savings such a big deal with blockchain is the exact same fabric that makes it possible to launch these new businesses. So where are we headed? We've looked at a central banking use case, we've looked at a commodities use case, and we've looked at equities. So where are we going generally? By and large, we're moving from a world where data is held in silos that are bubblegum and or taped together, where parties keep their data private behind firewalls and adhere to a you show me yours, I'll show you mine type of approach, to markets that are collaboratively maintained by participants. So all in all, we're moving from what's on the left to what's on the right. I'm going to go through a couple slides here that underscore something I think we all know, that this change is accelerating. Virtually every major financial exchange in the world has been conducting for the past 2 years advanced tests with this technology. We know about NYSE and NASDAQ, of course, but even the Burmese Stock Exchange in Myanmar has been doing tests since 2016. Another point I want to highlight here is that we're seeing a steepening hockey stick for technology adoption generally. If you look, sorry, we have some font problems here, but from about 2004 to 2012, you can see a rise in the adoption of algo trading. From 2004 to about 2012, you see the adoption curve for cloud infrastructure. And if you look here, this is going from 2015, 2016, I believe, to 2020. This is the adoption of robo-advising. It's a fairly unmistakable pattern of steepening adoption rate. It's going to be the same thing here. The last point I want to underscore is, in addition to all the crowdfunding that's going on, there's a ton of institutional investment. There's a lot of skin in the game. The financial organizations that we work with recognize that change is coming on the horizon, and they're funding it in large cases. So what's going to happen in the next 12 months? I think we have a big idea of what the big picture is and what the end game is, hopefully, from what I just said. But what's going to happen in the next 12 months? What are we going to see that's new? A few things that I think we're going to see is, number one, a general interbleeding and intermixture of public and private networks. Public Ethereum is probably going to play extremely well with private Ethereum, and vice versa. Generally, regulated markets are going to look more like the crypto space and vice versa. You're going to see things on Kraken that are going to make it look more like NYSE, and you're going to see NYSE look more like Kraken. I think this is a good thing, and it's coming soon. Thanks so much. Cheers. Yeah, thanks.
Well, hello. I guess what I'd like to start off with is how excited I am to be here today, especially to share this vision in my own backyard in Santa Monica. So I just really appreciate the overwhelming response and the turnout, and it just makes us all feel great to be part of Blockchain Beach here. So in my past, and my previous venture prior to BlockV was Tether. I was the co-founder and CEO of the first dollar-backed cryptocurrency. And that gave me a really deep insight into the financial applications of blockchain technology and immersed me into the ecosystem. And what I quickly realized is that while it's extraordinary and has changed the world, it is going to be challenging for us to get this type of technology from millions, the millions of people today that are trading cryptocurrencies and utilizing them, to billions. How do you take this technology from the level it is today to the mass market? And that concept really would be, from our perspective, more of non-financial applications of blockchain technology. How do you make something that meaningfully interacts with the end user that's more engaging, that broadens the use cases far beyond cryptocurrencies? And so what I'd like to talk about is interface, an interface moment. And that's really what we're facing right now, because today we can feel the power, the passion, the desire for blockchain technology to be felt around the world, and that's why we're all here. But there hasn't been a user interface yet. There's not been an easy way for developers to build on top of blockchains unless they're specialized in Solidity or other languages and they have a deep, deep knowledge. And so in the past when that took place, it's called an interface moment. The internet was around for 20, 30 years before Mark Andreessen created the web browser. It was used by researchers and governments. When the web browser came along, it gave developers and individuals around the world a platform to build, monetize, distribute businesses on top of the internet. It changed the world. The last great interface moment is mobile. So if you think about in 2008, Apple created the App Store. And what this ultimately did was create an environment for developers to easily build, monetize, and distribute apps around the world. And an entirely new app economy was born. And this has also changed the world, because now people realized, oh, we have an easy way to access a new technology. And that's why it's called the interface moment. And that is what BlockV is to blockchains. It's the interface to blockchains. It's an interface for developers around the world to build, monetize, and distribute blockchain apps. But for us, what is a blockchain app? Well, we're here because we're all interested and excited about tokens. We know what they are. They're these amazing new ways to create programmable value, digital scarcity. So at its heart, BlockV provides tokenization as a service. It enables rapid development and monetization of blockchain super tokens, because it's not just a token. It's a new asset class that we've coined called VATOMs, smart virtual goods written to blockchains that meaningfully interact with the end user. And this is what's going to bring about mass consumer adoption, because it's not just financial transactions that we're talking about. It's not just currencies. It's more experiential objects. It's ways to reinvent branding and marketing and loyalty and tickets and many, many other use cases. And we're here to provide the tools for developers around the world to take this asset class and make it the next big thing. So what is this asset class? It's the VATOM. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what a VATM is. We take the characteristics of a cryptocurrency and give it app-like qualities. And now this object can meaningfully interact with the end user. So on the right here, these are the characteristics that we know and love and that why we're here. This is a cryptocurrency token. It's finite, it's authentic, it's transferable, it's possessible, it's tradable. This is what makes Bitcoin great. On the other side, this is what Block V adds to all of these tokens. Unlike a smart contract where you put a token in, they do some magic, and then different tokens come out, this program, this language, is attached to the token. So we enable developers to program tokens, write policy and rules, make them combinable. Take two tokens, combine them, grab 4 puzzle pieces, make a brand new token that actually gives you access into a concert. Redeemable. Obviously, these are objects. These are digital objects of value that can be redeemed for a real-world good. Network aware. They'll change state. Imagine if it is a ticket to a Lakers game and you're in there and the Lakers win. Well, the ticket evolves and changes state and you get your free tacos or your free cocktails. Because they listen. It's on an event bus and can listen to whatever thing that's happening on the internet that you program it to. And they're artificially intelligent. Because when you put all of these things together, they have a brain, they're long-running processes, and they take on a life of their own. So that is a VATM, this new super token. It's an asset class that's going to change the world's relationship with digital value. Cryptocurrencies have come along and changed the world's relationship already with digital currencies and with money. But when you think about digital value, all of these objects that you interact with on a daily basis that are trapped in your apps, right now, you really appreciate them at the moment you're in the app, but that's where it ends. They're not interoperable amongst each other. And that's what the VATM is. It's a brand new asset class that makes all digital goods interoperable amongst each other, tradable, ownable, and they take on real-world characteristics. So we're going to provide the tools to the world to build these VATMs and make them and distribute them across the world. What I'd like to share now, actually, is get a little more deep into it and show an example of what is a VATM. And if you come to our booth a little later, we have videos and everything that we can do a deep dive into the experiential nature of these things. But right here is a Bitcoin wallet. These can be ERC20 tokens, they can be Bitcoin tokens, they can be EOS tokens. The developer has the right and the choice to create these objects and write them to any blockchain. And so these are interoperable smart digital objects. This is an example of a ticket. So you know blockchain for tickets, except for now it has multimedia characteristics. It changes state. It has exclusive content. It becomes a digital keepsake that you can buy, sell, or trade, and that the artist can update at a later time. This card here, this is all available today, and you can get a shareable gift card to earn our network token V, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But this showcases the power of the technology because it enables you to share with a friend and you get rewarded. They share with a friend and they get rewarded. And you can get rewarded for actions of people in your downline. And so it showcases the power when you can track unique digital objects and reward people for different things. And you can drop them on a map, pick them up AR, simply like Pokemon Go style. So imagine Pokemon Go with digital objects that are unique, that you take out of that, put in your inventory, and you can buy, sell, and trade for anything else on the marketplace because we're making the whole world of digital objects interoperable. So where are we at today? What have we done? So the examples I just showed you, that's from 2 years of development and millions of dollars spent. The platform's live. It works. You can view it and interact with it. The network token, so the most important part of this is our network token V. So the asset class is called a VATM. The network token is called V. And that will be useful and utilized day one. The moments they're generated, you can use this V to produce VATMs and incentivize people for various actions with our network token. So all of the proceeds from our TGE will go to building out world-class developer tools because we built the platform that scales to billions of objects cost-effectively. And so the money is now to put the polish on it and really showcase the power of the VATM to the world. So the technology stack that we have built, and this is why we're so excited about really showcasing this to the world, is because it's a layer on top of various blockchains. You can write these tokens to Bitcoin, Ethereum, EOS, and others. And when EOS comes along, when it's instant and free to make these transactions, it will open up the world to even more use cases on blockchain because of the cost to utilize Bitcoin and Ethereum is actually having a dampening effect on putting billions of objects on there. So we build a layer above it. The heart is the nucleus, the registry. We have SDKs, APIs, and marketplaces and exchanges. These will all be open sourced so the developers can go in and build them themselves. But this is one of my favorite slides. It's the trillion object opportunity. Because what are we really talking about with VATOMs, these new smart digital objects? People are like, oh, there's in-game objects or these types of objects. Well, actually, there's a trillion of them because there's millions of apps. There's over 1 billion websites, all with tons of digital objects inside. And what we're doing is providing the developers around the world the tools to put the DRM inside the object. Because today, it's in the app. It's not in the object. Once you have all of the DRM in the object, you remove the walled garden, you free the object, and you have the ability to have a global ecosystem of these digital objects that you can buy, sell, and trade, and you can take your in-game item and swap it out for a ticket or loyalty or some digital coupon or any other type of gamified virtual good that someone has created. So it's freeing the object from the walled garden. So our opportunity with VATOMs is playing in a trillion object playground. Lastly, and most importantly, the power of the V. So I'm excited to be part of this small group of companies that can champion these tokenized business models. Since we have a very consumer-facing product, our product is to provide developers tools to make these VATOMs and showcase them to the consumer. So there's going to be mass demand for it. And so when you have a tokenized business model, what that really means is if your network token has the ability to meaningfully interact through the entire ecosystem, then it increases its value. So our developers will use V to create and to run VATOMs. Our consumers will be incentivized with V for various actions, sharing or redeeming, etc. And cyclers, one of the most exciting things that I want to talk about today is cyclers. They are our version of miners. They perform distributed compute functions. So they're the ones that actually make VATOMs run. And what's exciting about that is today we've announced this partnership with Storage. So storage is going to enable us to utilize their distributed storage capabilities and utilize them as a CDN. So they're our first cycler where we will store all our assets and call from another decentralized platform to make these VATOMs come alive. And I'm out of time. We have an amazing team, amazing advisors, and our TGE starts next Thursday. If you care for any more information, please go to blockv.io and come visit us at the booth. Thank you very much.
Do you hear me? Energy, as we know it, has changed. Not too long ago, things were simple for energy companies when they tried to understand how much energy they need to produce and how to manage the network, as there was only one source of energy production and one kind of consumers. Today, things are much more complex, and we have many kinds of energy resources, as gas and coal, and also, of course, renewables, as wind and solars. But we have also new kind of consumers, as prosumers, which are consumers and also producers of energy. This brings a lot of headache to energy companies when they're trying to manage the network, and also a lot of losses, both in energy and money. How much losses, do you ask? 400 terawatt hour of energy is being lost every year. Every year. You know how much is it? It's enough energy to light up the entire United States for 1 month. Do you get it? 1 month of energy of the entire United States is being lost currently because of inefficiencies. And that was recently also justified in Forbes. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Asaf, and I was born or raised up in northern Israel in a nice village. And in my family, the environment matters. Unfortunately, When I grew up, I saw that normally the financial interest trumps the interest of the environment. So I decided to dedicate my life to understand deeply how the renewable energy market works and trained as a PhD in the prestigious Fraunhofer Research Center in Germany for renewable energy. To me, join my brother, who is a computer scientist with many years of development, both in startups, some of them made exits, and to us joined Elia and set of skilled engineers both in blockchain, smart contracts, and AI. To us joined set of advisors, these are only some of them, both from the field of finance and energy and weather predictions, and we established back in 2014 the first coin which is rewarding solar energy back before the time of the ICO, called Solar Coin. One solar coin is rewarding 1 megawatt hour of solar energy, allowing both reward mechanism as green certificates worldwide on the blockchain and trading excess capacity of energy. We have established Solar Change, the first platform that aimed to collect environmental data and data of producers of the network, validate it, and yield beneficial insights both for the household and for the network. We have defined the concept called proof of green, allowing us to understand and validate if there is green production no matter where on Earth. The Solar Coin blockchain is also unique from another point of view. It's very efficient in the energy in compared to the Bitcoin blockchain. It is built as proof of stake, allowing much more, 90% more energy efficient in compared to the Bitcoin blockchain, and very high performance from different aspects. Well, we also established 5 US patents based on machine learning algorithms that allow us both to understand how to optimize a node in the network, which is the energy producer, and the whole network itself. Let me give you an example. Here is state-of-the-art performance of a solar panel along the day, and we can see here state-of-the-art company in compared to our algorithms. We are capable to exactly predict and validate the performance of each solar panel or solar installation about 95% of accuracy. If we compare our algorithms to the state-of-the-art companies currently in the market, much more mature than us, we see that our precision is much more accurate than them, not only in the result, but also in the computational power and in the time of the computation. Well, since then, we have a lot of traction. Leading energy companies are incorporating our technologies to their core behavior, and we are currently in contact with organizations around the world as IRENA, Solar Power Europe, Lumo, SunSpec Alliance, here in San Francisco, here in California, and other companies. We got grants from IBM to develop on top of their platform our technologies, and currently we are running 3 POCs. In addition, our community is currently active in more than 40 countries around the world, trading our coins and enjoying our technologies. And the solar coin market cap is above $10 million. Well, we also got few nominations and acknowledgements, both from the startup communities around the world and from the blockchain communities. But nevertheless, since then we saw there is a bigger need in the marketplace, not only rewarding the producers of energy, but also the consumers and also the transmission. And we came up with Greenium. Greenium is aimed to monetize, decentralize, and optimize the whole energy supply chain in a very unique way. Well, our vision is to give a new gateway for renewable energy worldwide and to save billions for governments, energy companies, and countries. Capabilities of the Greenium network allows consumers and producers around the world to purchase and sell from each other, no matter where they are, renewable energy. Our token called Green, ERC20 token, a utility token that is aimed and capable to use the services and features of our network. Let me give you an example of a transaction on the Greenium network. As you know, Bitcoin miners or any cryptocurrencies are consuming tremendous amount of energy, very difficult to scale up. In the Greenium network, they are capable to purchase the energy even from a rural off-grid system in Africa. Let me explain you how they do it. The producers in Africa is accumulating green certificates as the solar coin, which was the first green certificate that runs on the blockchain. Currently, in the Greenium network, is totally decentralized, and the validators can be anyone that would like to contribute his computational power. Therefore, the validator has incentive to publish the data on top of the blockchain and try to complete a transaction and enjoy a green reward for that. The Bitcoin miner is actually buying the energy from the rural Africa producer, but the energy itself, of course, is received using a local grid producer that complete the transaction and enjoy the energy. And the Bitcoin miner is consuming the green certificates, reducing his own carbon footprint, and eventually, you can guess what? We can have the first green Bitcoin or every green cryptocurrency that is tagged using the Greenium network certificates. Well, that can be a Bitcoin miner, that can be the next iPhone you buy, that can be every big consumer that is currently would like to reduce his carbon footprint to zero. In addition to that, the Greenium network contains a set of AI algorithms, one hand allowing to reward data sharing on the blockchain using the green tokens, and on the other hand, allowing different stakeholders in the market to purchase insights, both weather predictions or insights which are relevant to optimize network, optimize production of renewable energy, or of the consumers. The core benefits of the Greenium network are clear. Energy companies, grid operators, and governments can save billions if they use the platforms. The residential owners, as the one in the rural Africa, can get incentives to develop further the renewable energy in the market. And currently, we have received a letter of invitation from the government of India to come and establish pilots to develop the country renewable energy market using this unique technology. Also, we are in contact with Puerto Rico president and other governments around the world to use this technology and save from their own budgets and from the taxpayers' budgets. Well, our plan to scale up is the following. 2017, to complete the ICO of the Greenium network, establish more proof of concept around the world. Around 2018, subscribe as many as possible subscribers to the network, and scale up to 2019. You're invited to read our white paper. About the initial token offering, I can say a few words. It's ERC20 token. 115 million tokens are going to be established, and the date of the ICO is aimed for late November this year. Thank you very much. Happy to answer your questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is William Quigley. I'm the CEO of Opskins. I have a large background in consumer products at Disney, running the venture capital arm of Idea Lab, building, operating, investing in many well-known consumer brands. And the reason that's important today is because in the opening part of our remarks, I want to talk about a problem we in the crypto community have, and that is with consumers. The problem is there are not a lot of consumers who are using what we're building. And the question is why consumers haven't yet embraced cryptos. Where is the market? And anyone out there who's either investing in cryptos or is just interested in this industry blossoming and wants to know the answer, where is the big consumer market that will use blockchain and cryptos to expand, to better serve its customers? A market ideally that's global, which plays to the strength of the blockchain and, of course, cryptos, that's all digital, because if it's all digital, it scales. And one that's existing and organized. I would emphasize existing. A market where there's a lot of consumers who want to do something and there's not a good solution for them. An existing market that we don't have to wait around for to develop. A market where consumers are already having problems that we know would be solved or could be solved or improved with blockchain and with cryptos. So as I said, I'm the CEO of Opskins. Opskins sells online virtual items, what we call skins. I'll explain what a skin is in just a second. And our market, by the way, is a market that is ideally suited for what the blockchain and cryptocurrencies provide. So we don't sell baby skins, but there's a reason that's up there. From the moment a person is born, they try to stand out. They try to differentiate themselves from others in their community. All human beings and all cultures do this. The most dramatic way we do this is by personalizing our skin. We put markings on ourselves to distinguish ourselves from one another and to impress those in our community. Now, these markings are strictly cosmetic. They don't make you faster, they don't make you stronger, but they do make you appear special. They make you appear unique. Now, I said we sell online video items, but online gamers are no different from everybody else. They want to stand out. And how do you stand out in a generic online video game? You try to personalize yourself. In this case, a very popular game, PUBG. What does the guy do? He puts on a badass-looking trench coat. A trench coat, by the way, that will cost you about $400. That trench coat has unique elements of it, which is why it stands out and why there's social status for having it. This is an image from a very popular online game called Counter-Strike, CSGO. That's a standard issue weapon. It has olive drab texture and look, and looks like every other model of the same type of weapon. Until a video gamer decides to attach a skin to it. Now, a skin is a digital paint job. It's like graffiti. That skin actually doesn't do anything to enhance the capability of that weapon. But it does something much more important to people in the online video game community. It allows them to stand out among their peers. Opskins helps people visually merchandise these weapons. And I think something happened in my presentation, but I'll try to continue. That there is another example of a skin, right? Something you would slap on your particular object, whatever it is, and make people know who you are. The important point here is that this is a unique item. There's no other item like that particular one in the world. Now, what is surprising to many people, and I'll try to go back here, is that this particular skin cost 9 Bitcoin. That skin cost $37,000. And on our site, on Opskins, it would last a few minutes before it was sold. It's a digital item, easily transferable, very expensive, and has some things that make the safety of transferring it problematic, which is where Opskins comes in. This, if it works, is an example of someone who's just acquired one of these skins. Let's see if it goes. And it doesn't. But it would have been a very fantastic expression of a guy jumping up and down because he won something that for him is one of a kind. Opskins itself was formed in 2015. Since that time, we've become the global leader in trading these items. We now have consumers buying 2 million items per week from our website. Billions of dollars in transactions. And we're selling to about 400 million people who buy and trade these items across the world. Now, how do you become the global leader in creating a giant website that transacts in skins? You do all these 6 things, but pay particular attention to banking and payment ubiquity and security. Anytime you're dealing with digital items, as most of you know, there's a risk, and especially when they're high-value digital items. So we spend a lot of time on those problems. Before the blockchain, they were very expensive problems to try to solve, and we never really did get them perfect. We're better than anyone else, but they could be improved. As I said, there's limitations to what we do. This is where the blockchain comes in. One of those is reach. There are 400 million of these people who buy and sell skins in 100 different countries. Opskins itself accepts 50 different fiat currency types. And anyone who's been in business who deals with multi-currency knows that's a real pain. We also deal with all the other standard issues of e-commerce. There's fraud, but in particular we have a problem because the vast majority of what we do is between buyer and seller in different countries working with different currencies, which means there's a currency conversion VIG. And I think over the coming months, we're going to learn a lot about how big that VIG is that the global financial institutions capture. But we've looked at it, and it's much bigger than I'd like it to be. And so when it comes to cross-border payments of small dollar amounts, you can easily see there might be a better solution than doing it with fiat. So about a year ago, my team and I set out to create a better marketplace, a better way of transacting in these items using elements of cryptos. The first is we introduced Bitcoin to our community. As much as it's probably shocking to all of us here, the vast, vast, vast majority of the world has never even heard of Bitcoin, let alone knows how to use it. Online video gamers were the same. But out of 100 different payment options that we allow our customers to use, out of 100 within a year, Bitcoin is now the #3 most popular payment mechanism. For all of us who have read about, oh, Bitcoin is a store of value, no one really uses it, that's true unless there's a proper use case. When buying and selling skins, it is used, and Opskins is now one of the top 5 e-commerce sites globally for accepting cryptos, Bitcoin as deposit, and paying it out. There's a lot more we can do, however, and in our minds, a centralized approach to trading skins is problematic, has its limitations, and a better solution would be a decentralized model. Now, we'll see if you can read that. If you can't, because I can't see anything there, that would have said the elements that we've incorporated in our platform. They include a smart contract settlement, obviously the nature of immutable payments, but also because our ecosystem has tens of thousands of businesses that facilitate a trade. It may appear there's a buyer, a seller, and a digital escrow agent in the middle. In fact, there can be up to 8 parties involved in getting a buyer to get an item and a seller to receive payment. All of those parties get paid. They typically, like most affiliates, get paid weeks after the transaction, which discourages a lot of them from wanting to participate. Now imagine if you could pay them in real time with every transaction. And the reason we're bothering to do this and build this, and this is the second exchange, by the way, that my partners and I have built. We built the very first exchange trading virtual items in 1998, and then we created that into the largest marketplace in the world. We've now built the largest skins marketplace in the world. But this will be the first decentralized marketplace in the world for skins. And the reason we bother is because in 4 years, the global skins industry has grown to $50 billion. $50 billion made up of 400 million consumers, mostly millennials, trading between $10 and $20 on average in value back and forth between each other. So you can imagine why that's relevant to what we're doing here. Now, this is particularly striking for me. 400 million people buying and selling. Compare that to 4 million consumers in the world who use cryptocurrencies for e-commerce. It's virtually no one. But that's because this group hasn't yet been educated about it, and there hasn't been a solution tailored for what they do. That's what Opskins has done. We have built a solution called the Wax platform. We're the most knowledgeable in the world about how to trade in-game virtual items, and we've worked with some of the most noteworthy people in the video game industry and the crypto industry to develop a platform that is tailored, custom-made for this market. And as a result of that, when we did our private pre-sale, in about 4 days we filled up more than what we had originally allocated. 26 million was the allocation. We were oversubscribed to over 30 million in about 4 days. And I think if you look at the quality of the investors that we attracted, they also agree that what we've built is going to be very powerful for both the crypto industry and for consumers in general. If you would like to learn more, go to waxtoken.com. I'd love to have you read up on what we're doing and see if it's something that would excite you as much as it excites us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Joel Dietz from Swarm Fund. I think many of you have participated. Ooh, here with the captain. That's nice. Didn't realize I was going to have company on stage. So I think maybe many of you were part of the first wave of cryptocurrency innovation, Bitcoin, digital cash systems, and you participated in that. Maybe you got a good 1,000x return, and that was great for you. Thank you for being part of that. I like to describe that as sort of the groundwork of cryptocurrency. I've done a lot of educational events, organization in the Bay Area and globally, and I think without that layer, so many of these other things would not have been possible. I personally was very involved in the early days of Ethereum, both as someone who participated in the crowd sale and helped build infrastructure and education around Ethereum. And if you participated in that with me, you also probably got a 1,000x return. You participated in what I would call the ocean stage of cryptocurrency, the initial ability to tokenize things, which, as I've noticed from the audience, many of you are trying to do today. And I think that's fantastic. And there were many of us who worked very hard to make that possible. What I think we're about to go into, and I think this is a fitting place to actually be giving this presentation, is the air stage, where we are starting to see real-world assets, whether it's real estate or funds or ownership of various types of assets, commodities, all go into the blockchain context. It's inevitable that this is going to happen in some way, and I think everyone in this room has sensed that we're on the verge of this third wave. And to get us there, I mean, obviously, some of you are familiar with the history of airplanes. You know, there were the Wright brothers. They built their own sort of, attempt at a plane before they finally got it up in the air. It's been a little bit difficult. You know, you need a number of things to come together for actually getting it in the air, flight. You need mechanical engineering. You need, in our case, and for many things, you need legal integrations in multiple jurisdictions. People who understand what Bitcoin and blockchain are and are maybe willing to be a little bit progressive and step out and sort of test the waters. And I'm happy to say that since the early days of Ethereum, that's something that our team has been working on. We organized the first legal conference on smart contracts at Harvard University. And we established a working group at Stanford University to figure out how can we bring in all of this old world value and let it live in a blockchain context. One of the interesting things that we discovered along the way, and this is borne out by the SEC's recent ruling on the DAO, is that governance is a key component. Because when individuals have the ability to directly participate, they actually are no longer passive participants, as is the case in many ICOs today, but they are actually active decision makers in the future of that platform. So with a team of an incredible amount of legal advisors, from the people who originally did the AngelList docs, to the people who did the Spider ETF, to the people who did the first Overstock crypto equity offering, we are set to the hilt to actually take this wave and build a platform that is for real assets what Ethereum is for tokens today. And we're extremely thankful as well to have an incredibly talented team of partners in the mix. In particular, my partner Philip, who was managing a $10 billion portfolio for Alliance Group and has also built several tech companies himself. My partner Timo, who was involved in the building of Banker Bay, which is now the largest deal origination platform for private equity in the world and does $25 billion a month in deal flow. So we are partnering not just with crypto people, but people who have an understanding of the existing finance industry, and not only that, people who have the experience of building platforms from the ground up to take them so that they can actually capture the value creation that is there in one of these waves. So I think if you compare us with any of the other projects that are looking a little bit in the fund management or hedge fund space, you'll probably find that they have great, and I've seen some of them, they're great projects. They have good teams behind them. They're doing some kind of specific fund. And yet we're building at this platform infrastructural layer that is going to capture and allow this whole third wave to happen with a very high degree of sophistication that is much like the planes that you see above you today. And I think that if you've seen the evolution of what's happened in the past 3 years, you've probably seen the little pieces come together one at a time. Just on the governance side, which is a very exciting one to me, I've organized many meetups just on governance. I was early in sort of Dash, and I work very actively to promote different forms of decentralized governance. there have been a number of iterations over the past couple years where that's become an increasing emphasis, and that it needs to be embedded at the protocol layer. But when it is embedded, it allows a much wider sense of community participation and evolution in those projects. For our own case, we've been at work for over a year on our liquid democracy protocol. We have a team that's working out of Oxford University that has designed, looked at sort of traditional voting systems, the game theoretical implications of them, and gone into a very savvy design phase. And we've partnered up with some former people from the Ethereum Foundation to make this into a general service layer that not only facilitates our own project, but actually can be something that anyone who wants to embed some degree of governance and potentially protect themselves from the negative impacts of the Howey test or securities regulations can use for their projects. So we're actually, of course, and this has always been part of my vision, if you've seen any things I've done in this in the past, eating our own dog food. Because we wouldn't have it any other way, and we wouldn't sell a service to other people that we weren't willing to use ourselves. So immediately after our own token offering, which it's worth going into a little bit, all of the token holders will be able to participate in electing the board members of the organization. We're, as far as I know, the first organization that has ever done anything like that, and particularly taken people from the blockchain world and actually allowed them to control a brick-and-mortar, real-world organization with those legal integrations. And if you just take a moment to breathe and reflect on that, this is a critical upgrade. It's a fascinating new change in how the whole world works today, because everything else is the regulators and other people from the old world looking in and trying to decide what should happen in this blockchain world. Is it allowed or not? This is the opportunity to shift the whole discourse in the opposite direction, where not only can we decide as people who, and I certainly welcome all of you to participate in this sort of coin offering and be a part of this thing that has gone now beyond just an experiment, but to something that has the possibility of creating a framework that not only allows thousands of real assets and funds and fund managers and all those things to be listed, it actually can form a platform where every financial institution of the future will actually have this governance layer embedded at its very core. And if you think about how the central banks of the world exist today, or how Wall Street exists, their whole ownership and governance system is very obscure. The Federal Reserve was set up after J.P. Morgan said, I don't want to actually be doing all the monetary policy for the United States. I don't like it. I'm the big banker dude, but I find it really annoying. How about we get a bunch of people together and create this Federal Reserve System? And so it was not something that had the democratic or embedded governance system of the future. And I think if you just let that process and think about that, you'll see that probably you want to be part of the shift. It's a shift that affects every aspect of society, and not only that, it's going to be the future, the third wave of blockchain. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dee Seidman, and this is my colleague, Jonathan Sela. We're with YouNow, and we're going to introduce to you today Props by YouNow, our new project. Props is a decentralized ecosystem for video applications. We are mobile video guys. Basically, practically invented mobile live streaming in the United States. As you can see, it has become a big category, and we're excited to own a significant mind share of the category. We have today over 40 million registered users. Our users spend about 50 minutes per day on the platform. And it's nice to see also brands and media companies who are engaging with their users through participatory media, allowing consumers to interact with the brand and with the content. And it's this kind of programming that we're going to see more and more, and we're going to talk about today. This very high engagement also translates into a vibrant virtual economy where consumers buy into a virtual currency and creators earn on the platform. In 2014, we were the first to marry microtransactions with a mobile video platform. Today, we're taking this economy, we're taking our millions of users, our community, and our technology, and we're leveraging it with an additional layer of blockchain and cryptocurrency for a much bigger vision and a much bigger opportunity, and that is to decentralize the digital media ecosystem. And so we're going to talk about Props, and I'm going to hand it to Jonathan.
Thanks. So Props is a decentralized digital media ecosystem. And digital media today is a highly centralized space controlled by just a couple companies. And there's two problems with that I want to talk about. The first problem is around the distribution of value. Sorry, the distribution of content. And that's highly centralized today. A small group of people decides what we get to see and how much of it we get to see. Just an example from a couple of weeks ago, we saw YouTube taking down hundreds of thousands of hours of content documenting the war in Syria, effectively impacting the collective memory of history. The second problem that I want to talk about is around the disproportionate allocation of value in digital media. In digital media, we have a couple of companies who've generated hundreds of billions of dollars in enterprise value through their networks. But the users and the curators and the creators and the developers building extensions on those networks have only seen a tiny fraction of that value, a tiny fraction of the value created by the network that they comprise. With Props, we're launching a platform that is designed to fundamentally change that. By tokenizing the digital media economy and decentralizing it, we're able to proportionally and equitably reward the different participants in this ecosystem. So what exactly does that mean? Let's talk about Snapchat, for example. Snapchat IPO'd for almost $25 billion earlier this year, but the creators, the influencers who've been a huge part in the success of Snapchat have seen zero financial return from that IPO. Let's take a media company producing high-quality content, and effectively they're bound to distribute that content on the leading digital media networks today. Their margins are squeezed, and their ability to control the distribution of their own content is limited. What we're seeing with the tokenized economy is the ability for these people to become real partners in the network. So whether you're a user, a content curator, a content creator, an influencer, a media company, and as well as the founders and the crypto enthusiasts that help jumpstart this network, you're all able to earn in token in an algorithmic way that gives you your fair piece of the content that is generated on this network. And what that does is that it aligns the long-term incentives of everybody in this network. And what it also does is that it incentivizes developers to build more and more applications in this network. eventually resulting in a digital media ecosystem that is not controlled by a single entity in terms of both distribution of content as well as the economic value that is generated by it. Now, we come from mobile video. You heard Adi introducing YouNow and the incredible community that it has. And this project as well is going to be aimed at the mainstream users. So we're going to introduce millions of people to a cryptocurrency, but we're going to do it in a way that obfuscates the crypto economic layer and lets them enjoy a user experience that is on par with what they're seeing today in the market, and in fact introduces a whole new type of user experience that we're going to demo in just 3 minutes. So imagine users that are able to hop on, whether they know nothing about cryptocurrency or whether they're crypto enthusiasts, they can jump on this platform and start engaging and start consuming content, creating content, and engaging. Over time, as they create engagement, that engagement is, as we just discussed, worth tokens, the tokens that run this network. And they receive compensation in tokens, rewards in tokens, straight to their phone with a push notification that leads them in a nice and easy way into a mobile wallet that is very user-friendly. So this is effectively going to be the first time where generating media engagement is going to be the equivalent of mining cryptocurrency. Now, this has been tried before in the crypto community in a bunch of ways with beautiful ideas that follow similar notions, but it has never been tried and it's never been implemented in a product that is aimed towards the mainstream and on a community that is already transacting in a digital economy that provides similar functionality. Users are spending money on a digital currency and creators are earning that way. We're going to take that economy as is in that regard and provide an experience that's going to take this to the masses. The token we're launching, Props, is going to be available from day one for usage. It's going to have a bunch of functionalities associated with it. It's going to be used for payment. It's going to be used for status signaling, which is a huge driver for payments in social networks. It's going to be used to influence what content gets discovered, what content gets surfaced to the top. It's going to be used for access to new features or to premium features and access to content. And it's going to be used, as we mentioned, to compensate creators. Now we're going to try and show how that looks. And this token, one of the beautiful things about it is that the day of the token distribution, this is a project we've been working on for the past year. We've been working on YouNow for 6 years, but this project has been built over the past year. It's going to launch with a token in it the day of the token distribution event. And that token is going to be used from day one by anyone that participates in that and any other user that joins. So let's talk about where it's going to be used.
Thank you, Jonathan. So Rise is the first app on the Props ecosystem. It is a many-to-many video platform that allows any developer to program any kind of interactive video and social video experience. It comes with a technology that enables unlimited amount of streams in real time and the ability for them to interact according to any logic that is programmed. It comes with an economic framework for money in and out, tokens in and out, that is ready to be used for any kind of use case. And it comes with a built-in community. So, we chose an interactive video platform as the first use case for the Props ecosystem exactly because, microtransactions in the context of video are so lucrative and command such a high ARPU. This is from Mary Meeker's deck just earlier in the year, and you can see the value versus other monetization techniques in the video ecosystem. One of the exciting things here is not just the community of millions that we're porting in here on day one, but perhaps even more so, the content creators, the thousands and tens of thousands of content creators, influencers. Think about YouTubers with 100,000 and sometimes millions of followers who have a stake, a personal stake in the network. No longer are they subject to the rent collectors who don't have the same aligned interests. Here, everybody is working together to appreciate the token, and everybody's interests are aligned. They are incentivized to grow the network because effectively they have a personal stake in the network. We're also launching a consumer-level, easy-to-use wallet that is available both on the Rise platform and for any app or platform on the props ecosystem. We talked a little bit about developers and use cases, and I want to run you a few example use cases, and then we'll jump into a live demo of the platform. So one example, karaoke. Everybody's live. I'm dragging a friend. I'm dragging a piece of content. This is the logic that I programmed for this room, and I'm performing in front of a live audience. Another example on the left here, watching together. Comcast is one of our investors. Imagine TV programming, YouTube. Now I can drag any of my friends and watch linear content together. On the other side, America's Got Talent. They've been doing auditions on YouNow for the past 3 years. On the one side, the America's Got Talent producer. On the other side, the contestants and the people who are trying out, that they're bringing one after another. Forever, they've been asking us for this additional functionality, these 2 buttons that they want on the screen. Well, now they can, and anybody else who has a use case for interactive video and social video experiences can program that using the API and the open platform. And this extends to any kind of social game, reality show, game show, communication. A friend of mine is the CMO of one of the 2 largest auction houses in the world. They're live streaming. They're looking for ways for people at home to participate in the auctions. Use cases that you never imagined that people will want to do on platforms like this are out there. Effectively, anything that we can do in real life, there is demand to do interactively in the social context on a platform like this. This is a little bit of a quirky story, but I think it's worth it. How many of you know the games, the Mafia Wars? It's a party game. Okay, so a bunch of people. So you need 5 to 10 people to play it. You hand out cards, and this is all the rage now in China. Apparently, 5 of the top 10 gaming apps in China right now are Mafia Wars, which is called Werewolf over there. And you know, you don't always have 5 to 10 people next to you. And you can go home, click a button, now you're in that app, and you're getting together with a group, and you're playing this social party game. Hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in China. About a month ago, my chairman of the board emailed me and asked me, can we do Mafia Wars on Rise and Props? And I said, yes. And it used to be that you had to go to a VC and raise a couple $1 million and build a team and get the technology, the video technology up and running and build the economic framework to allow for the purchasing and the math around that, and then distribute it and try to get to an audience. Here, through rapid development, you have all of that built in, and you can easily and get to market in a cost-effective way with any kind of an interactive video communication idea. So let's do a quick live demo. I'm just going to jump here. Believe it or not, I'm using 4G, and I have 1 bar. The camera will be my witness. And I think we can see that on the screen right now. And let's see if that is working well. I'm going to go ahead and drag a friend in here. So it's a little slow. Hi, Dan. How's it going? Let me go ahead and reward this friend. Let me drag another friend. There's Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How's it going? Good, good, good. So just to get a feel for how quickly this technology is, even with one bar, I'm going to drag Sarah out, and then I'll go ahead and drag Sarah back in. So everybody's live all the time. If I click on somebody in the audience, I'm clicking on Gretchen, and she is live as well. So just to get a feel for another use case, let me go ahead and drag our CTO in here. That's how a CTO looks like. Let's go ahead and jump into another room. Sarah, why don't we jump into your room, and I'll experience how it is to be in the audience. So everybody go to Sarah's room.
One thing to note is that all the engagement that comes in the form of these likes and these gifts, which is kind of how a digital virtual economy that we're running today works, all of that engagement gets accumulated and eventually distributed in the form of props that are rewarded to the users with that push notifications that we looked at earlier. So imagine a network, a digital media network that works that way.
So right now I'm in another room and I'm in the audience and I'm hanging out with my friend here. We could be watching Sarah, or we could be watching linear programming, YouTube videos, anything. And I can go ahead and drag anybody to join me. I'm going to go ahead and drag Oli as well. Oli is not my friend, so it has to call him, and he will join. I can have a group of any size as we watch together. These are just a couple of use cases. Here, one last thing. Once I'm done, you can see a push notification that I'm getting, as Jonathan showed before, telling me how much I contributed to the growth of the ecosystem right there. I could have invited 10 friends, and 8 of them showed up and registered. We know mathematically the exact value of each user's contribution to the network.
Yeah, and this use case is just just the first use case in this ecosystem. We're going to seed this Rise app with the YouNow community, 40 million registered users, thriving virtual economy, very little change to the user behavior in terms of the economic transactions, but a big change in terms of the capabilities of the platform, its openness, and the ability to cater to multiple use cases, as well as the ability to take the earnings, use them on other apps, and hold on to them for the long term to enjoy the growth of the network. On Rise, we saw how developers can create extensions of the type that Adi showed earlier. We saw how media companies like a Comcast or an MTV can distribute their content here, and a bunch of them are interested in doing that here. But also, developers can build apps outside of Rise. Just create completely new apps, and all the apps in this network, based on the amount of contribution to the network, and we can talk more about how that works another time. It's a good idea to take a look at our white paper that describes exactly how this works algorithmically. These different apps enjoy a stream of rewards that ultimately make their way to the hands of users. And the Props Foundation that holds a bunch of these tokens distributes them on a schedule programmatically. Ultimately, 70% of the tokens are going to be held by the different participants in the network, and that, we believe, creates a fundamentally different type of digital media ecosystem. In fact, YouNow itself, outside of the nonprofit foundation, we're transitioning to a benefit corporation with the mission of creating a more transparent, equitable digital media space and contributing to the growth of the props ecosystem.
Thank you, Jonathan. So just to wrap up, more information on propsproject.com, our white paper, some videos, and we especially welcome developers and content creators. There's information there and forms to fill out if you want to join us on Props. So thank you very much, everyone.